Dr. Sopel, who is in attendance as alternate chair to hear your comments. SCRD Senior Planner Yuli Seo will introduce and state the intended purpose of the bylaw and may answer technical questions you may have concerning the bylaw. All written submissions received by 12 noon p.m. today on September the 6th, 2022 will be entered into the formal record of the public hearing and available for public inspection. SCRD Recording Secretary Genevieve Dixon will be recording your comments here this evening. I'd also like to introduce others elected that we have in our audience and listening to your comments tonight. We have Leonard Lee from Area A. We have Donna McMahon from Area D. No, sorry, Area E. I'm so sorry, Donna. Area E, Elphinstone. And then we also have Mark Hill from Area F, West Howe Sound. So thank you for joining us this evening. From staff, we have Jonathan Jackson, our manager of planning. And then from our planning staff, we have Chris Humphreys and Nick Copes. And of course, Genevieve Dixon, who I've mentioned already. And of course, Yuli, who'll be doing the majority of the presentation tonight. And then from our IT staff, we have Bryce Beaton to provide us support to get us through this evening. I would like to acknowledge that this public hearing is taking place on the territory of the Sechelt and the Squamish First Nations. This public hearing is convened pursuant to Section 465 of the Local Government Act to allow the public to make representations to the board respecting matters contained in the proposed zoning bylaw 722. A public hearing is one of many steps required by BC law for local governments to review applications for land use changes. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide an opportunity to be heard, the proposed change. By BC law, this part of the process is scripted and involves one-way communication from residents to the hearing. Public hearings do not include dialogue or debate. They are a venue to systematically hear each resident speak. The public hearing for the bylaw amendments was advertised in the August 26th and September 2nd, 2022 editions of the Coast Reporter newspaper. A copy of the ads is available for inspection in the public hearing information binder. In accordance with Section 465 of the Local Government Act, a public hearing may be conducted by means of electronic or other communication facilities. This public hearing is being held via the Zoom platform, by computer or electronic device, or by telephone. The live stream of this meeting can also be reviewed on YouTube. The following measures are taken to ensure openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability in respect of the meeting. Number one, notice of the public hearing and instructions on how to attend the meeting electronically are advertised in the newspaper and on the SCRD website. Two, the electronic meeting allows the public to speak, hear, and watch the public hearing. Three, technical support is provided to ensure all technical issues are resolved to enable meeting accessibility and communication of related information. At this public hearing, any person present who believes their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard respecting matters contained within the proposed bylaw. No one will be discouraged or prevented from making their views known. If you wish to speak during the virtual public hearing, please use the raise hand function in Zoom to indicate that you wish to speak. If you have joined the public hearing via telephone only, press *9 to raise your hand. When it's your turn to speak, the chair will use your phone number to identify you. Please listen for your phone number. A live speakers list appears on the Zoom screen with the next 3 speakers. Watch for your name. Your hand will be lowered once you have been added to the speakers list. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes and permitted only to speak about matters contained in the proposed bylaw amendments. If more time is needed than 3 minutes, another opportunity to speak will be offered after everyone has had their first opportunity. Please be patient. There may be several speakers, but you will be given an opportunity to speak. The identity of persons who make written or verbal submissions will form part of the public record. When speaking, please begin your remarks by clearly stating your first and last name. Participants are required to express their opinions in a respectful and courteous way to other participants and to the community at large. Please be mindful that this is a public meeting and all verbal and written submissions will form part of the public record. The chair or alternate chair may ask questions after everyone who wishes to speak has had an opportunity to make representations. However, the function of the elected officials at this public hearing is to listen rather than to debate the proposed bylaws or to have a dialogue with the public. When the chair calls on you to speak by name or by your telephone number, you will be allowed to address the meeting. Zoom may appear to pause for a minute. You will need to unmute your microphone to speak. In the Zoom app, the mute/unmute function is selected on the lower screen. On a telephone, the microphone can be muted or unmuted by pressing *6, but is not to be unmuted until direction is given to do so. When the staff moderator allows you to speak, the Zoom app often appears to disconnect. This is only momentary, and you do not need to log out. Please begin by stating your full name for the record. If you do not, the chair will ask you to provide this information. Once everyone has had the opportunity to address the hearing, and if you wish to speak again, please select the raise hand button and the speakers list process will be repeated. After this public hearing has concluded, the board, during a following open public meeting, may, without further notice or hearing, adopt or defeat the bylaws or alter and then adopt the bylaws in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Act. May I remind you that tonight is your final opportunity for input on the bylaw, and no further information can be received for consideration once the public hearing has not permitted to receive any communication or correspondence such as email, phone calls, or written submissions by email, mail, or fax after the advertised deadline that occurred at noon today. I will now pass it over to Jonathan Jackson, our Manager of Planning, to make a few comments. And then after that, our SCRD planner, Senior Planner Yuli Sale, will introduce and state the purpose of the proposed bylaw. So up first, Mr. Jackson, over to you.
Well, thank you. I'd just like to start by making a couple of comments. And first of all, give my thanks for everyone and all the public input that we've heard today. We've heard some fantastic public input. And staff are doing our best to try and work that into the bylaws as best as we can, recognizing that this particular bylaw is a refresh to bylaw 310. So 722 does not seek to take away or grant any additional uses or densities that are not already there. There is some gentle densification, for example, that is happening within the context of the OCPs that it's trying to bridge, which is 6 of our 7 OCPs in the regional district. And it's, specifically looking to do some gentle densification within those things. By and large, though, it's not looking to take away or grant any significant changes to density or any changes to use. I should also mention as well that, we have received quite a few comments regarding specifically the art crawl and some of the home-based business regulations. I just want to, note that the art crawl currently isn't actually permitted by bylaw 310. It's actually an assembly use that has taken place in our community to achieve a really great thing that we do value in our community as sort of a one-off event that happens annually, and it's operated very well. It's never required by law enforcement. A regional district or local government can choose when not to enforce our bylaws, and we do. And that's one of those things that is a bit of a challenge that we haven't been able to contemplate within the scope of this bylaw due to some of the complexities around liabilities about permitting assembly uses on residential parcels. So I just want to note that we have heard loud and clear the popularity of the art crawl, but it is beyond the scope of this bylaw and what it was intended to achieve by trying to permit that type of use explicitly. That being said, I will say that there's still many things here, and as our public hearing chair, Director Lori Platt mentioned, within the statutory obligations that we have, following the public hearing, no changes to a use or a density can occur to the bylaw. That would trigger another public hearing, which is a possibility if there was a direction to go that route. However, some minor tweaks that don't involve changes to use or density, so things like conditions of use, setbacks, these sorts of things, can be looked at if there is a direction to do so. So we are here tonight to hear everyone's comments, and we're looking forward to all of the comments that we'll hear tonight. And we'll take count of those and report back to the board afterwards. With that said, I don't want to steal too much thunder from Senior Planner Siao, so I'll turn it over to him for his formal presentation for the evening. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. So, okay, so the formal review and adoption process for Bylaw 722 started with first reading of the bylaw on May the 12th, 2022. And after that, between June and July, there were 2 public information meetings held in the community, one in person and one online. And also the agency referrals were being conducted during this month. And the board gave the bylaw a second reading on July 28th. So tonight is a public hearing. By the deadline specified on the public notice, we have received about 45 submissions or written comments. They have been posted on our website. And after tonight's public hearing, staff will prepare and present a public hearing report for the board to consider third reading and adoption of the bylaw. So the intent of the bylaw is to update and replace the current bylaw 310. It is intended to make better alignment with contemporary policies at federal, provincial, and local levels. And there is quite a bit of technical housekeeping to the bylaw that has been done. For example, the update of the terminology, definition, and references. Format and usability have been improved, and there are a few key changes in a number of opportunity areas that will need to be addressed urgently as a response to the community's demand. So I will get to that just in the next slides. So here are the highlights of these changes. Housing options and design. So the new bylaw will allow a secondary suite with the floor area of up to 55 square meters to be within a single family dwelling. And the auxiliary dwelling size will be increased from 55 square meters to 90 square meters. And any auxiliary dwelling can be attached to any building. That means carriage house will be allowed. And the requirement for a minimum of 6 meter building width for any dwellings has been removed. Home-based business. It will be permitted in mode zones, subject to conditions to maintain neighborhood characters and to prevent conflicts. And up to 50% of the total building floor area in residential zones and 40% in all other zones can be used for home-based business. Residential agriculture. So for parcels under 1,000 square meters, except in the agricultural zone, residential agriculture such as poultry and rabbits, beehives, and livestock are not allowed for parcels of this size. For parcels between 1,000 and 3,500 square meters, except in the residential multiple zone 1, 2, and 3, poultry and rabbits will be allowed for 6 animals per every 1,000 square meters. But roosters will not be allowed. And beehives will be allowed. 2 beehives will be allowed. And livestock is not allowed except livestock means any other kind of domestic animals. So for parcel of this size, livestock is not permitted. But for parcels over 3,500 square meters, in all zones except the RM 1, 2, and 3, poultry and rabbits will be permitted, and beehive will be permitted, livestock will be permitted without any restrictions. And for any parcels of any size within the agricultural zones, all of those residential agricultural activities will be allowed. And there are, in the bylaw, there are also facility requirements such as setbacks for the structures that house the animals, and as well as registration requirements to mitigate nuisance and neighborhood conflicts. The bylaw has a few provisions to support climate change adaptation. 4 area limits excludes exterior walls to allow thicker walls and to allow more energy efficient buildings. High exceptions apply to green roofs, solar panels, and wind turbines. An oceanfront setback of 15 meters will be consistently applied throughout the zoning bylaw area to enhance flood protection and protection of the foreshore ecosystems. Building floor area ratio. So for parcels less than 1,500 square meters, the total building floor area can be 40% of the lot area or 450 square meters, whichever is less. Cannabis production and retail. The land use distinction between medical and non-medical cannabis production has been removed. Cannabis retail is only permitted in commercial zones. Rural parcel size and setback requirements are also put in place for different types of production, for example, the standard and the micro productions. And the regulation is also made consistent with ARR regulations. So that's just a brief summary of the bylaw. So thank you very much. So I turn it back to Director Pratt.
Great, thank you, Yuli, and thank you, Jonathan, for those comments and for those introductions. Who would like to be on the speakers list to make verbal submissions to bylaw 722 at this public hearing? I will now officially call a first time for submission in the order on the speakers list. And I see our first member on the speakers list is Marlene Vermillion. And Marlene, my apologies if I pronounced your last name incorrectly.
No worries.
Okay, so Marlene, as the first speaker, we're going to set you up, and first thing I want you to do is introduce yourself with your first and your last name, and then you have 3 minutes to speak with your verbal submission. So go ahead when ready.
I am Marlene Vermillion, living here on the Sunshine Coast for 24 years now, and I'm an artist, and I already noticed that you guys picked up on our worries as artists for the Sunshine Coast Art Crawl. what I understood of the bylaw is that there is now a law that there is no more than 6 persons per day admitted or allowed in a studio, and by appointment only. I'm also a board member of the Coast Cultural Alliance, who organizes the art crawl. And as a board, we are very worried about drastically impact the art crawl, since the whole setup of the art crawl is that people are crawling from studio to studio. So to do that by appointment would be would change the character of the art crawl drastically. Plus, the art crawl brings in so much economic revenue for the Sunshine Coast, for the artists, but also as a spin-off for all the tourist restaurants, hotels, B&B, etc. So anyway, that would be one point that we would like to make, that we're really worried about that aspect of it. And I realize that you say, okay, we can have an exemption for that. I also realize, having lived here for a long time, if a neighbor complains, which I know sometimes happens during the art crawl, of too many cars parked or whatever it is, those things can be turned around really quickly. And it's worrisome that that's not a law here on the South Coast. On top of that, I also realized that there are so many small businesses here on the Sunshine Coast who work and it's not only artists, it's Pilates studio, it's all kinds of small businesses that work out of home. Anyway, I had a post on Facebook and I've read all the comments, and I realized that's a huge worry for many of the Sunshine Coast home businesses, living and working here, because I think our community, it really hits in the soul of who we are. Anyway, I think that's what I would like to say, and I would like to ask you to take that into consideration.
Thank you, Marlene. I appreciate your comments. If you would like to speak again, you can always get added back into the speakers list. With that, Marlene's time is done, and we are going to move on to our second speaker, Edmund Butler. Need to bring Edmund in. Edmund, you've been unmuted. If you can introduce yourself, and then you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. I've been a resident in Rose Creek since...
Edmund, first and last name, please.
Edmund Butler.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. So I've been here in the creek since 1989, operating as a woodworker, essentially. And I guess my concern is the limit on space. I operate in a workshop that's about 1,000 square feet. And honestly, I can't afford to build a house that is 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 square feet in order to meet the math of the equation. Not only that, I don't want to. And I should be free to choose to live in a house of 700 square feet and to not be penalized in terms of my business. The type of work I do as an artisan, as a furniture maker is, I require sheds. I require a space for machinery, about 20 feet by 20 feet. I require a space to prepare the furniture. There's benches and finishing space. And I don't think I'm unusual in that way. in that respect, in terms of artisans. But the way you've set the restrictions impinges on my ability to conduct my trade. And I don't think in the long run, you're going to be able to show that that's reasonable. I think what you're effectively doing is determining how much space I need to do my business. And frankly, I don't think it's the government's business how much space I need to do business. So I'm fairly upset, and I just want to register that comment. And thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Butler. We are just going to move you back into the gallery. And next up on our list, we have Brenda Sopel. Okay, Brenda, if you can introduce yourself, please, and then you have 3 minutes.
Brenda Sopel, I'm a resident of Roberts Creek, and I would like to ask what percentage of engagement has there been in feedback in the community, because we're dealing with, what, 4 different areas? Is that correct?
Yes, we're dealing with 4 different rural areas.
Right, so the population total of those 4 areas is 12,782. So I would like to know how many people have participated so far in your surveys and your input to this bylaw. Do you have that number?
I will look over to Jonathan or Yuli. Do you have those numbers at your fingertips?
You can answer that question later because my time is running out, but I would also like to say that I say no to adopting bylaw 722. I don't believe there's been enough engagement, and it's certainly been through the summer months when there are lots of people that are absent. There are lots of not local people that will be affected by all of these bylaws and all of these changes. I know you're saying that there aren't any, but there are. And I'm sure a lot of it's in all sorts of details within that. I haven't had time to read the 144-page bylaw, but I would say no to adopting this bylaw until we've had more input. If you believe the bylaw will stand, then put it to referendum. I think that's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. You still have some time left if you wanted to. Oh, okay. Anyways, we will move on. The next person that we have on our speaker list is Graham Walker, and then Mark Guignard. So, Mr. Walker, if you can introduce yourself, and then you have 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go
That's
ahead,
great.
Graham.
Okay, thank you. It's Graham Walker from Roberts Creek. Thanks for letting me speak. I'm just found out about the public here. I have a very busy summer putting on events, and I somehow missed some of the previous information, so I hope I'm not repeating myself here. I'd like to speak on behalf of the music teachers and the musical community on the coast. I've been teaching music lessons out of my home for 25 years. Some of those years were quite busy. I would have 8 to 10 or 12 children an afternoon coming up and down the driveway, which most of the neighbors quite enjoyed watching them come. So to restrict music teachers for one purpose would be quite a limitation on some people's ability to survive and live here on the coast. Because I was teaching lessons, I was able to pursue my musical and recording activities and also start the Gibson's Jazz Festival, the Music and the Landing, and the Roberts Creek Slow Sunday. So I know there are many other people like me, artists and people who contribute tremendously to the community. A lot of us are making not huge incomes, and we really rely on being able to do our home-based businesses without too much restriction. 6 people a day would not make it viable for me for many of those years. So that's one point. I wrote a letter as well with more points to submit. So I'd like you to take that into consideration, please. Another point, looking at just on first reading the height exemption for green roofs and solar panels and wind towers. I've read numerous articles lately on the benefits of painting roofs or requiring rooftops to be white or light tan color, which actually saves more energy and is more productive than green roofs by a large factor. This was research done by a Nobel laureate who said if we painted all the roofs in the world white, it would be like taking most of the cars in the world off the road. That's how much it would affect. So I would like to say not to pass those height restrictions until further remedial ways are found and researched by the board. Looked at it. Sorry, I didn't have time to research that totally, but I did include a link to that article about the green roofs. So just summing up, the limitation on teaching music lessons and studio work would be really severe to many people on the coast. And thank you. I think my time is up. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Graham. Next up, we have Mark Bernard, and then we have Clark Hamilton. So Mark, you're up. If you can introduce yourself, and then you have 3 minutes.
My name is Mark Bernard. I've lived on the coast for over 40 years, and I'm retired. And I have a question in regard to the auxiliary homes that you're proposing at 969 square feet or 90 meters squared. May one build the auxiliary home first, followed by the main home when the individual has the money to put up the larger home? There's historical precedence for this. When settlers came to Canada in the early prairie days, they built a sod house because there were no materials and they didn't have money. But it didn't take them long. They stayed in their sod house usually a year or two and then built their dream home. Now, the benefits to the individuals would be a smaller initial mortgage. It would give young people more time to save for their dream home. I would say endeavor not to regulate people to build the main home with a deadline. Allow them to do it when they can afford it. And in the meantime, they can be living in your titled auxiliary home. So please take the above into consideration when we're speaking of it. I've never seen the order. The normal order is they're building a main house followed by an auxiliary home. Why not reverse it? It would also set up you currently have RVs on the properties that they're allowed to stay in until they build their main home. You would eliminate that, and they're buying a depreciating asset in the RV. Why not have them put the auxiliary home up first, rough it in that, then build the larger home when they're in a position to do so? And maybe mortgage rates would be down by then. Thank you for your time.
Jonathan or Yuli, there was the question there whether or not you could build the smaller home, the auxiliary first, and then the main home. Would one of you like to address that, please?
Yes, certainly. Yes. Yes.
Oh, I've got you both at the same time.
Yes. Yes, of course. The auxiliary dwelling could be built first on the parcel that allows both a principal dwelling and an auxiliary dwelling. So when the auxiliary dwelling is built first, it's considered the principal dwelling. So when the principal dwelling is built after that, then it will switch to so the one that was built first will be switched to an auxiliary dwelling, and then the principal dwelling will be built second will be considered principal dwelling. So yeah, it has been done on the coast. Yeah, so it's possible.
And the second question was, will you dictate the time frame that the individual will have to build the primary residence?
No, there's no time frame.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mark. And we're just gonna move you back into the gallery. And next up, we have Clark Hamilton. And on deck, we have Annie Wise. So Clark, you can introduce yourself, and then you have 3 minutes.
My name's Clark Hamilton. I live in the edge of Seashell, close to Half Moon Bay, and I've been building on the coast here for almost 50 years. So I've been here for quite a while. I cannot, for the life of me, understand why this initiative has been pushed forward at the rate that it's being, considering we've only had 2 hearings since 2018-19, which were one of them 27 people in a Zoom meeting, and the other one was presumably some kind of a face-to-face meeting. I'm not sure where. And a lot of the things that have been addressed brought up in the new proposed bylaw are kind of restrictive when you consider you're going to have people who have bought waterfront property, which many of them have saved for a lifetime, and finally got here, and now all of a sudden they're going to be pushed back from 7.5 meters to 15 meters, and we heard actually 17 meters. So I'm quite concerned about this kind of approach to what we understood was a level of the rising water and so on. So why go back further when you can just go up? It's very simple, and we've been doing it for years, and I haven't seen any kind of ill effects as a result of that. People are happy. They've been able to put their homes down close to the water where it's practical if they can. Those who haven't been able to do that because of other reasons, whatever reasons, that's fine to move them back, but that shouldn't be compulsory. I think that should be something that people review with their geotechnical engineer, which they have to have on any proposed project these days, and get a sensible kind of outlook and approach to the whole proposition of building to the water.
Side setbacks.
Oh, time's up.
No, you have.
The other thing is the idea of homes being over 8.5 meters in height will increase the side lot setback to 4 meters instead of 1.5 meters. I don't understand for the life of me how this will. What does this do? What's the advantage? And who has designed this capability? Architecture has changed dramatically in the last 50 years. You know, it's amazing what's going on now. We're not able to do these things if we keep being more and more restrictive. It's getting more and more costly, and I just hate to see it happen. So I think we should be hold this hearing in advance until everyone has had a chance to debate it and consider all the ramifications, because it's a far-reaching ramifications on this bylaw. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Clark. Up next, we have Annie Wise, and then after Annie, we have Robin Chauhan. So Annie, you are next, please. If you can introduce yourself, and then your 3 minutes will begin.
Hi, thank you. My name is Annie Wise, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Sunshine Coast Tourism. I'm the executive director, and I just wanted to provide a comment specifically around the regulations regarding the allowed use of home businesses, around on-site client visits only by appointment, scheduled in advance, and a maximum of 6 clients per day. I know in the opening comments, thank you, Jonathan, for addressing some of the concerns around the art crawl specifically. We are concerned that the specific regulations will significantly affect our local artisan community and their ability to host occasional events such as open houses, studio tours, and of course the Sunshine Coast Art Crawl. And so while I appreciate that you've addressed need for perhaps some sort of one-off exemption, or even just kind of limited or little bylaw enforcement for an event like this, it's still concerning to see it brought into bylaw. Sunshine Coast Tourism's mandate is to build a strong and sustainable tourism economy on the Sunshine Coast that's consistent with the values of our residents. And so for us to effectively grow the visitor economy outside of the summer months, which is our goal, we rely on exceptional visitor experiences in our community. And we strongly believe that local and home-based artisan offerings to visitors is just that, an exceptional experience. The arts community's social, cultural, and economic importance to our region just cannot be understated. Economically speaking, the Art Crawl has been an anchor point of Sunshine Coast Tourism's visitor fall attraction campaigns for many years. The event itself attracts thousands of visitors during off-peak tourist season. And last year, the art crawl brought in over $600,000 in direct sales to artists, plus hundreds of thousands of more in additional spending at local accommodations, restaurants, retail shops, tour operators, and of course, many other types of businesses. It brings such a substantial positive publicity to our region that it influences visitors to make their trip to the Sunshine Coast all year round and to return time and time again. And other year-round activities and events such as the Purple Banner Tour, art open houses, and other types of studio tours, in addition to many other businesses that use their homes, such as yoga and wellness services, are all contributors to that idea of creating exceptional experiences for visitors. We urge you to immediately reconsider this portion of the bylaw as stated above to one that is more supportive of the artisan community, its use of home studios, and by extension, the visitor economy as a whole that supports so many small businesses in our region. So thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Annie. With that, we'll move Annie into the gallery. And up next, we have Robin Chauhan from Roberts Creek. And then after that, we have Mary D. So Robin, if you can introduce yourself, and then your 3 minutes will begin.
Hi, my name is Robin Chauhan. I'm here in Upper Roberts Creek and lived on the coast for 14 years. First, I want to thank everyone here who's doing their best to govern the coast well, as well as the way they think is right. But I have 2 points to make today. First, I believe that the limitation of 6 visitors by appointment only is totally unfair to businesses that have smaller ticket items for sale. There is no way that anyone who is selling smaller ticket items or who has smaller services like music teachers or all types of artists actually, except for the very high-priced art items, can survive on 6 visitors by appointment. That means that those days when there's lots of traffic through the coast, those special event days when lots of things are happening, and I'm not talking about the art crawl, I'm talking about the hot tourist days. These artists need to get as many visitors on those days as possible. This rule is completely unfair, and it needs to be changed. This is I think it's crazy. This type of limitation puts these small businesses at a hopeless disadvantage. There's just no way they can operate. You're basically asking them to shut down, actually forcing them to shut down. That's crazy. I don't support that at all, and no one should. Secondly, I feel that the public engagement has been totally inadequate for such a big and important change. Actually, it's not a big and important change. There's a million little things in here, and some of them really matter to a lot of people. The fact that a lot of this engagement period was during the summer, no one's doing this in the summer. It just wasn't enough time for us, guys. I know you're trying, like everyone over there is trying, but this did not work out. So trying to jam this giant, I mean, there's actually some good things in here that I support, but these 2 points, first, limitation of 6 visitors by appointment only is going to destroy these businesses with smaller ticket items or smaller ticket sales. There's just no way anyone can survive in the modern economy with 6 small ticket, and these are just visitors. That doesn't mean they sell to everyone. How many visitors does it take to make one sale? Think about it. In retail, 10 people come by, maybe one of them sell. So you're saying in 2 days they can get one little sale. What is the point of doing business? You're basically saying that all of those businesses need to shut down. That's completely unfair. I don't think that makes any sense. And there has not been the proper time. I don't think people understand the implications of this. Because if they had the proper time and the proper amount of engagement and channels, Zoom is terrible for engagement, I'll just tell you that. But if they had the proper time and engagement, they would make it clear to you that this is not fair. So this feels like an omnibus bill being jammed down in high speed, and I'm against that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments, Robin. We'll move you into the gallery, and next up we have Mary D, and then Heather Banell Kelly. Once again, Mary D, if you can introduce yourself with your first and your last name, and then you have your 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Mary Keegan. I'm in Area E. I'm very grateful that Bylaw 722 is coming and that we're going to be updating Bylaw 310. It's been a long time coming. I do have a number of concerns. One is that I bought property in Area E 10 years ago. The bylaws were changing in that area when I bought and I didn't know. And I researched heavily to make sure I could actually farm where I live. And then the bylaws changed before, while I was purchasing and I didn't know. And so this will be the second time the bylaw changes. I can't afford to buy another piece of property. I can't afford ag land because there's no half-acre ag land. Some of my concerns are I have poultry as a subsistence farmer that feeds my family. So at a half-acre, that means I will be able to have 12 birds. So right now, that would work as my base flock because I also raise birds for meat. So I need 6 to be laying, I have, some of them lay, but I also need to be replacing those layers every year. For that, I need a rooster. And you already know that what's currently on ag land mostly is horses and Christmas trees. So you cannot limit agriculture by saying roosters are only allowed on ag land. It's just not fair. And, my rooster alone created 100 more chickens on the coast this year, other than on my property, because hardly anybody has a rooster. And this is a huge food security issue. I will also want to know what the prejudice is against roosters. I have people that live beside me. There's 2 different houses. One has a large industrial vehicle that roars up at 4:30 every morning, and another one has one at 5:30. They're both louder than my rooster. They go for 10 minutes at a time. They wake up the rooster. So I want to know why people are allowed to have vehicles like that and I'm not allowed to have a rooster. I want to know where the scale of noise comes from. And I also would like to see a change to how, because we have a complaint-driven system, I think there needs to be a minimum number of different people to make the complaint. So one voice can't shut down someone's livelihood, or like myself, I grow food for subsistence. So I really need that rooster. And, I eat 28 birds a year, so I need to be able to hatch those out. So yes, I need layers. I need enough birds to eat as well. So, and currently I'm on a half-acre and I'm only using about half of it to raise all those birds a year. So.
Mary, we have reached the end of your time. If you would like to speak again, you're more than welcome to put your hand up after everyone else has gone. Thank you for your comments right now, and they will be entered into the public record. Next up, we have Heather Banell Kelly, and following Heather, we have Glenn Edwards. So Heather.
Hi, my name's Heather Banell Kelly. Thank you for listening to my comments. My family and myself own a waterfront property in Pender Harbor. Unfortunately, earlier this year, our home burnt down. So we had hoped to rebuild on the existing footprint, but the new bylaw is going to prohibit this. So what it does, it's going to force us farther back from the water, which means we're going to have to build a multi-story home, which isn't what we want. It doesn't fit into our neighborhood. And we are concerned, like everyone else in the Lower Mainland, with housing in the Sunshine Coast, that it's going to be a more expensive build and a more complex build. We were really focused on trying to keep all our procurement on the Sunshine Coast with the contractors and everything we needed, but we're just concerned with the new setbacks. There's going to be a lot more involvement from Vancouver than we really wanted to have. And just one last point, because of the setbacks and the orientation of the house, there's a good possibility our parking is going to have to be on the ocean side of our house, which is not desirable for anyone to have vehicles any closer to the water's edge that they need to be, but not to mention aesthetically, and no one wants to look at the ocean through their car windows, essentially. So that's all my comments. My request would be that the bylaw to be deferred for more consultation. Thank you.
Heather, just a quick question. You said you were in Pender Harbor?
Yes.
Okay, so this bylaw update is for bylaw 310, which is for areas B, D, E, and F. Bylaw 337 encompasses area A, the Pender Harbor and Egmont area. But thank you for your comments still, understanding what your situation was. So,
okay, thank you. I just wanted Googling. I was madly Googling to find out my area.
I just wanted to clarify that for you too. So, so bylaw 337 is what governs area A, which is Pender Harbor and Egmont.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I hope I haven't wasted anyone's time.
No, good Lord, no. We welcome comments from everyone. So thank you, Heather, and we understand that. We understand that confusion. Trust me, planners deal with that all the time. And so, yes, with that, Heather, we're going to move you back into the gallery. And next up, we have Glenn Edwards. After Glenn, we will have Heather Kahn. So, Glenn, if you can introduce yourself and then on up for your 3 minutes, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Glenn Edwards, and I'm Roberts Creek. And my comment for this hearing is very simple. It's about being able to afford to live on the coast, and it's about rental inventory, and the logic of more rental inventory equals potentially less rental cost. You'll also know me, I'm a homeowner, and I hope to be is a legal renter. You'll know me also as Glenn29 on Let's Talk. And so I guess I have two questions. My first question is just a clarification of definitions. I asked a similar question twice and got two answers. So looking at specifically auxiliary dwelling unit, which 330 features the word suite, and in 722 it mentions the area could be attached to the same building. My question is in a split level home, is a contained ground level or basement suite, which a lot of people in Roberts Creek have, is that defined as a secondary suite under 722, or is it classified as an auxiliary dwelling unit? That's important because obviously the square footage is materially different between the two. So of my time, is there a quick answer to that? Because I was given two answers for my similarly phrased two questions.
Okay, Glenn, why don't you give me your second question and then we'll go back and we'll answer your questions, okay?
Yeah, the second question is the problem with the secondary suite as we have it right now is it has to be purpose built. Any additional area other than the 592 has to be accessible by the owner, which means if there's not a doorway or access has to be constructed. I think the greatest, easiest way to create rental inventory is to what's available now. And obviously there is 592 obviously doesn't meet anyone who wants an additional room to one bedroom, doesn't meet someone who wants an extra room to work, doesn't meet a couple, doesn't meet a couple who wants a guest. So I guess my question is, of the secondary suite that's 592 square foot, the existing 592 square foot, how do you see that accommodating the population? If I go on Craigslist right now, common sense dictates there are lots for sale for greater than 592. That's not people being evil. That's just what's available, what they have on their property right now. So I guess that's my question, because I hope to be a renter and I hope to provide rent for someone for 5 years until I wish to occupy it, but mine's 800 square feet. And that makes me a bad person in the current laws. And that's it.
Okay, Jonathan or Yuli, do you want to take on those questions that Glenn had, and we can just ask Glenn for any clarification if you need more information from him.
Sure.
Yuli, you want to go?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Chad. So yeah. Well, it depends on whether or not your property is allowed to have a auxiliary dwelling, because some properties, due to their size, only allows one principal dwellings. So if the property allows a principal dwelling and an auxiliary dwelling, yes, then it will be up to you to decide which suite you will designate as a secondary suite. But keep in mind, though, that the secondary suite has to be within the principal dwelling and has to be less than or not more than 50 square meters in the floor area. So if the suite is more than 50 square meters, so it has to be considered a auxiliary dwelling. So, but you have to check the zoning first to see if an auxiliary dwelling is allowed on your property.
And Glenn, does that take care of your questions?
So I guess it's pretty simple. I don't have my zoning whether I'm R1, R2, but I've got 0.7 acres. I am allowed an auxiliary dwelling unit, but instead of building a detached, I wanted just to have my auxiliary dwelling unit within my house, i.e. ground level suite basement. So is that allowed? I got 850 square feet, 2-bedroom, available for rent, potentially. Is that allowed under the new bylaw? Is it deemed auxiliary dwelling unit versus a secondary suite if it's my basement suite and it's large enough?
Yeah, by the size of it, yes, it sounds like it's a auxiliary dwelling. Yeah, it is allowed.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Thank you, Glenn. We have Heather Kahn is up next. After Heather, we have Sandy Buck. So Heather, if you could introduce yourself and your 3 minutes will start.
Okay, thank you. It's Heather Kahn in Roberts Creek. I've been a homeowner here for 22 years. I did submit a letter to the public hearing, so I request that you take a look at that. My main issue is, as other people have said, that I don't feel there has been adequate public consultation on this matter. Bring it forward during the summer and during COVID. It's not the same thing as what you do in the process during a regular year. I, for one, was away for a month this summer and only learned about this a few days ago. And I feel quite strongly that I think this matter should be deferred until the new board members come in to after the election. I just feel like it is being rushed through, and that's a disservice to all the people who work from home here. I run a home-based business myself. And I feel that some of the figures that are in this bylaw seem incredibly arbitrary to me, as other people have mentioned, limiting to 6 appointments a day. I don't know where that number comes from. Similarly, you've limited the number of commercial deliveries per week or per day, which again, I don't know where that number comes from. I mean, if you're going to do that to commercial operators, to people running home-based businesses, then why not limit the number of people, just a regular resident who decides to order from Amazon? Like, I mean, it's right now you're saying a resident could order theoretically 100 packages from Amazon, no problem. But if somebody running a home-based business has whatever number of things ordered and delivered, then that becomes a problem. So it just doesn't make sense. I'm guessing that you've received complaints that neighbors have had their driveways blocked or something by a vehicle. I don't know what the rationale is for that, but I mean, I've lived by the Legion in Roberts Creek for 22 years. There's commercial vehicles going up and down on the corner. I live all the time. I've never once had my work, my travel, anything bothered by them. So I would think that should be a limit. Both those arbitrary numbers should be limited in my view. And just to put this whole issue in a broader context, we're all dealing with the potential risk of fire, flood, drought, water shortage, stress from COVID. The last thing we need is more stress as a result of all these arbitrary issues that are being defined by this bylaw. You need to be more open-minded and open things up for people, not make them more restrictive.
Thank you very much, Heather. With that, we'll move you back into the gallery. Up next, we have Sandy Buck. And then after Sandy Buck, we have the One Straw Society. So Sandy, you've been unmuted. If you can introduce yourself and off you go.
Hello, my name is Sandy Buck, and I'm residing now at Area F and also on the Squamish Nation. And I only found out about this meeting 2 hours ago. So I really want to parrot what everyone else has been saying, that I feel like it has not had adequate representation for all the areas, especially some really hard-hitting laws that they want to put through. So whatever we can do to push that forward, I feel that's really important that the board take this in consideration. I am part of an arts organization, Deer Crossing the Art Farm. Some people might know about us. We have been here for 14 years, born and bred on the Sunshine Coast. And we have been a part of this community up and down, and also the whole West Coast. We work strongly with the nations, and I want to talk about assembly. I believe that whole limiting 6 it really has to be dissected. Where does that number come from? I don't agree with it, and I really hope that the board can dive deep into looking at that, because we are an amazing area full of artists. But even the word artist, what does that mean? And art is not confined to a single home. It is in the land. It is in the artwork, in the nature. And we haven't even consulted with the work with the nation. So I have no idea how much there. And again, my main concern is that not enough people know about this. And if me as an organizer, one of the organizers who works with hundreds of people, do not hearing about this is quite is a bit worrying. And I also there's some really great words that have been said. I have to applaud. I don't know why we're limiting the roosters. I'm all about roosters, but I really also want to talk about the complaint system, that we are surrounded by some people with thoughts about how we should stay in this current system of economy, or actually that keep us. We're dealing with climate change. We are dealing with people who cannot afford to live here. I am so privileged to be able to own, with my partner, my husband, 5 acres. We do have one rental, but 5 acres for 2 families is appalling when we can actually have more people on this land. But that's not what this bylaw is about. This bylaw is about other things, assembly and building, and I'm out of time. So I thank you very much, and I hope you'll take those things in consideration.
Thank you, Sandy. And if you would like to speak again, you're always welcome to put your hand up, and we will bring you around for the second round of comments. But with that, we're going to move on to the One Straw Society. And after the One Straw Society, we have Jerry. So One Straw Society, if you can introduce yourself, first and last name, please. And you have 3 minutes.
Oh, hi there. My name is Cassandra Fletcher. I'm a resident of the SCRD, and I'm interested in the impacts of this bylaw overall in terms of housing and business. But right now, I'm wearing my hat with One Straw. And One Straw is a federally registered charity focused on food security and food sustainability and food resiliency on this tiny little rural strip of land that we rely on boats to bring us food. We have an annual membership of over 600 residents, and they provide us with lots of insight and feedback. So I want to share some of that stuff. First, I want to acknowledge the work that's clearly gone into this massive document and the attempts to bring food systems language and support into the folds, stuff like supporting roadside farm stands and beekeeping and chickens on smaller lots are all a step in the right direction. So good job, you guys. However, there are a few things that need work as the impacts relate to local food. I've got 5 little points here. 1, prohibiting people on smaller lots under a quarter acre from keeping any kind of poultry or rabbits is a bit unfounded. Lots of large cities in North America, including Vancouver, successfully allow urban chicken keeping. So I would love to see that reconsidered. Certainly lots of 2,000 meters or larger, like Mary was talking about, should most certainly be able to have 30 birds or more without any significant impact on neighbors. Number 2, on top of this, we suggest providing exemptions on all lot sizes. to all limits for breeding initiatives so that we can bring local food resiliency, including hatcheries, which will have minimal impact on the land use and noise and smell, stuff like that, that people will complain about. For example, One Straw has a commercial egg incubator coming up for the upcoming tool library to encourage large-scale hatching, and you just made its use illegal the moment they all hatch. The issue is addressed in other regions by specifying the age of poultry and animals within the bylaws. So for example, say no limit to small animals or poultry under 20 weeks old. That might be an example. Number 3, we're unclear as to the rationale for restricting rabbit keeping at all, and why not the mention of other animals, mink, ferrets, domestic rats, cats, dogs. I mean, it's a rabbit hole. No pun intended.
Sorry.
Number 4, the issue of wildlife has not been appropriately addressed in this. Predators in particular that pose a risk to humans, chickens are going to attract them. So bears, cougars, bobcats, wolves, coyote, they're all common here. So a really great bylaw to take a look at, for example, is the District of Squamish. They have a good one that requires electric fencing. And some issues about beekeeping, but my time is up. Thanks for the chance.
Okay, thank you, Cassandra. And of course, if you'd like to speak more, please feel free to put your hand up. And after everyone has had a chance to speak, we will go on to the second round.
Yeah.
So thank you. With that, we are going to bring in Jerry. After Jerry, we have Jeff Muckle. So Jerry, you are up next. First and last name, please. And 3 minutes are starting.
Hi, Jerry Colson. You hear me okay?
Yes, Jerry, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I do bookkeeping here on the coast out of my home. Previously had an employee here for 17 years, and I was a little surprised to see in the changes, although that I'll no longer be able to have somebody employed outside of the home here at this premise. The previous bylaws didn't prevent that. In fact, it allowed one person from outside the home. It's been suggested a couple of times here on the planning side that this is a lot of bookkeeping and there are not significant changes, but actually looking under the home-based business, I find that there are quite significant changes. And again, the fact that I can't have an employee is one. Again, it's others have spoken to the 6 clients per day for visitation. For a small bookkeeping company and tax preparer, that's not a very workable solution at all. With respect to traffic here, it's limiting my business. It's limiting, I can think of a significant number of other people, as has already been pointed out, with respect to home-based businesses here in the coast. And I wrote earlier today as well an email. What I've discovered over the last couple of years here with COVID is a lot more people are working remotely from home, but they don't work in a home-based business. They're working for other companies. Their situations actually mirror home-based companies in the sense that they're working from home. Some of them are hiring assistants that are from outside of their premise. There's nothing in this bylaw to at all address that situation. So there's an inequality here with respect to how that's being dealt with. And I don't know why that wouldn't be have or been thought through with respect to all the people that are working now remotely here on the coast, as well as gig workers as well. I don't see anything at all in the bylaws related to situations like that. This seems to almost be punitive in a sense towards the home-based business persons. Anyway, I just wanted to put that forward and have that addressed. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Jerry. We appreciate that you took the time to come forward with your verbal commentary on Bylaw 722. With that, we are going to move you over into the gallery, and we are going to bring in Jeff Muckle. Jeff Muckle, if you can introduce yourself, and then your 3 minutes will start. After Jeff, we have Nick Vermillion. So Jeff, up to you first, and then over to Nick after you.
Hello, my name is Jeff Muckle. I've been in Half Moon Bay for over 32 years. And my issue with this upcoming bylaw is the food security issue of the chickens and the rabbits. Up to this point, I've never heard of an issue with having chickens on a half-acre lot or bigger. And the thing of not having a rooster makes it unholistic. I can't have a flock of chickens and continue to propagate more chickens. And also, if I'm limited to only 6 hens, then I can't do meat birds as well to be self-sufficient. So, and I don't understand the things with the limiting the bees in this present time. Our bee population is on the decline. You should be able to have more than 2 hives and self-propagate. So I think you're rushing this bylaw, and it's I feel that a lot of the things that you've come in, you're being restrictive on the home-based business issues, like the 6 client per day and the deliveries. I think you should be trying to be going in the opposite direction of encouraging more people to be self-reliant and home-based business. Anyway, that's oh, and one other thing, I read Donna Sugar's written submission, and I agree with most of the points that she makes in her submission. It's just, and that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Jeff. We will move you into the gallery, and then we will bring in Nick. Nick, if you can introduce yourself. And then after Nick, we have Angela Lavender. So Nick, up to you.
Hi, I'm Nick Vermillion from Grantham's Landing. I've been on the coast for 28 years. I am going to very clearly ask the directors to defeat this bylaw. This is the 3rd reading. Everything else has gone under the radar as far as I'm concerned. I think both the medium and the timing of this is terrible. This is not good consultation. I also think this should be deferred anyways to the next incoming directors in about a month or a month and a half time. This bylaw will have horrendous consequences for all home-based businesses and food security as a whole on the coast. I can't fathom what drove the SCRD to come up with such draconian restrictions on home-based business. I can only hope that it was unintended consequences. My wife is an artist. She's spoken earlier. There was in the introduction talk about the art crawl. I think that artists, artisans, and art crawl should be specifically excluded or should be exempt from this bylaw, period. In my opinion, the SCRD has no business in restricting any business, and particularly home-based business in a small community where this is the lifeblood of our community. And the same applies to all the restrictions for food security, should be eliminated. The whole section 5.4 in the bylaw refers to home-based businesses, and it's basically all unnecessary restrictions should be eliminated. That's where I'll leave it. Thanks for your attention. I hope this gets defeated.
Thank you for your comments, Nick. We will move you into the gallery. And next up, we have Angela Lavender. After Angela, we have Stuart. So Angela, over to you, please. And introduce yourself in 3 minutes.
Angela Lavender. All my coast neighbors before me who have spoken have all made valuable points, but it would appear from your earlier statements that they're really not going to be considered and that you're going to proceed without further consultation, which is very disappointing. But which was not what I was expecting. But what I'm actually concerned about is that you have glommed green roofs, wind turbines, and solar panels together. And from an earlier question that I I asked, it seems that wind turbines are going to be free from height restrictions. And if you have done any research, you can, with minimal research, you can find that residential wind turbines and residential and farm turbines can vary in height from 35 feet to 500 feet. So can you imagine, with no restrictions, what our coast could look like in a short period of time with maybe overly zealous, overly ambitious, overly greedy? I don't know. But it needs to be considered, controlled, not just exempt. And I think a lot of the issues in this bylaw, these changes, have not been thoroughly considered. And I find that very disappointing. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, Angela, for your comments. We will move on to our next speaker, Stuart. And then after Stuart, we do have Clark Hamilton, but Clark has already spoken once. So we'll go to Stuart and then move on. So Stuart, you up first, please.
Thank you. My name is Stuart Easterbrook. I live in wonderful Roberts Creek in the beautiful Sunshine Coast for the last year and a half. I appreciate the difficult job that both the planners and all of those on council must go through to try and appease as many people as possible. The first point I want to address is just the home business. You've heard a lot about it. I'm not an artist. I don't run a home business, but I'm affected because it affects the whole Sunshine Coast economy. I participated in the art crawl, the open houses, the artist studios. All the people come visit us as a family. They're all looking to go and interact with the artists. So 6 per day, by appointment, etc. It really doesn't work for their business, and that is a huge economic draw to the Sunshine Coast. Similar with, maximum of 2 group sessions per day, or only 2 at a time per day. People talk about music lessons, yoga lessons, and so on. It's not feasible for these people to provide these lessons, or to even make it affordable for people like me to participate in some of those lessons, because the point of a group lesson is it brings down the cost. So I think you really need to revisit this bylaw. Listening to Jonathan, you're suggesting that it's not really changing from the previous bylaw. I don't know. Other speakers are suggesting it is. Second one I want to address, and it's not really talked about per se in the bylaw, but when we talk about densification, and I appreciate that we need some improvements for homes, rentals, and so on. We need places for people to live. It's a real shortage here. But need to consider the water supply before we approve clearing land. Where is the water going to come from? We're in stage 4 restrictions again this year. And without that water, we can't water our home vegetables. A lot of local produce can't be drawn. We've heard from One Straw Society. I don't know if they're affected, because I know there are some exemptions. But we have problems there. And then the other effect of densification is, and I look at it up and down the road as I drive, I see large areas being cleared, houses being put on, they're uphill from me. What happens? All that water runs down and my slope deteriorates. And eventually I am very concerned as to when my house slides into the ocean. Finally, this is a very large bylaw. There's no details of why changes are made or what they're for. There's no information package itemizing the changes, or in what the changes were, where it's replaced. And finally, when I clicked the link for the information package, I couldn't get anything up. I just got an error in Chrome.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. And thank you for bringing those points forward. We are going to move on to Josh Wallace next, and then Mary Beth Netchell is up after Josh. And sorry, I was looking at I have 2 different lists going right now. So if you have already spoken and put your hand up, You will be called on after everybody who's had a chance to speak for the first time. So we're still on that first round of speakers right now. We're going to try and get through a couple of more here before we have a short break. But first, we're going to go to Josh Wallace, and then after Josh will be Mary Beth. So Josh, if you introduce yourself and your 3 minutes, please.
Hi, thank you all very much for taking on such a difficult task. Thank you to all the speakers so far. I'll also echo Clark Hamilton and many people in saying that I do feel that this consultation has been very fast. I'm sorry, my name is Josh Wallace. I'm an intern architect on the coast. And we only just found out about this last week. And it immediately put multiple projects into jeopardy. I think it probably killed one project coming up due to the 15 and sometimes 17 meter setback from the ocean. And another project, which we've already completed the schematic design on, to aware that this was happening, has also been majorly jeopardized. And so we may have to try and rush a building permit application in, but that's definitely not what we want to do. And not to mention the future projects of our company. I think on some sites, I think there's probably some sites where you couldn't build at all, 17 or 15 setback. And we're quite concerned about that. I would also suggest that if there is going to be increase in setback from the ocean, then, and so far it's only been about 15 or 17 meters, which is a consideration in plan, but I think there should also be a consideration in section of the site. Some sites are very, very steep. And so I think the risk of, I don't know, touching the water or whatever the concern is would be less on very, very steep sites. But I guess that also goes to say that we're not quite clear on the reasoning for some of these new rules. And perhaps that's our fault for not research or reading these large documents more. But I think delaying the bylaw is a good idea so that we understand your reasoning if it's been communicated effectively. And understanding, which climate models are you using to come up with these conclusions. And yeah, that's about it. I think the variance board can likely expect many applications to come in because they jump up to 15 or 17. It's pretty significant. And thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Josh. We'll move you back into the gallery. And up next, we have Mary Beth. Mary Beth, we'll get you to introduce your first and your last name, and you've got 3 minutes. After Mary Beth, we have Allison Taylor. So Mary Beth and then Allison. Go ahead, Mary Beth.
Hi, Lori. I'm Mary Beth Connectal. I live in Half Moon Bay, Area B, and have for the last 15 years. My question is, I really want to know why kennels are being banned from areas E and F. I use a kennel in Area E and have for 15 years. And I'm sure that many other pet owners from other areas use this kennel too. We rely on it when we need to travel to the lower mainland. I myself am a single person, so I can't, foist my dog off on the family or the neighbors. So I really rely on this service if I need to go to a medical appointment in the city. And I see other people who drop their dogs off because they're going to work and they're single people and need somewhere safe to leave their animals. So I just can't understand the reason for this ban. It seems particularly discriminatory against pet owners and the kennel owners. The kennel I use, the young people bought the business, about 5 years ago, I think, and invested a lot of money in it. And if it's, if they're driven out of business by this law, it's going to be a terrible decision for them. Also, I'm listening to other people about the 6 visits to a home-based business. I'm really curious about how you're going to enforce that. You have trouble enforcing noise bylaws in the community. How are you going to check to see whether, gosh, it's been 7 visits or what? It seems a bit absurd to me on the face of it. Anyway, thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, Mary Beth. I appreciate you coming out and speaking this evening. I will move Mary Beth into the gallery, and up next we have Allison Taylor. After Allison speaks, we are going to take a short break, but we'll get through Allison first, and then I will advise as to what time the break will start and what time we will come back. So Allison, if you can introduce yourself with your first and your last name, and then you've got 3 minutes, please.
Okay, my name's Allison Taylor. I assume you can hear me?
Yes, we can, Allison. Go ahead.
I live in the Welcome Woods area of Half Moon Bay, around 0.6 of an acre, and I run a home-based business that does not involve people coming to my home. I'm an artist who participates in the art crawl, and my husband and I are hoping to build a secondary building on your property to offer as a rental home. So I had a lot of things I was interested in this bylaw. First, I want to say I support most of the changes in it. I appreciate how you've looked to increase housing options, encourage green technologies in our home, protect the oceanfront habitat, and encourage food security, a lot of things that I like. But like many people, I am worried about the 6 visitors a day. Partly because I participate in the art crawl. Also, I'm wondering about, eventually I'd like to join the Purple Banner Tour, where you might, have your studio open certain days of the month and people can come. And I can easily imagine that a group that's more than 6 people might show up at once. In fact, there's a business, Sunshine Coast Art Tours, that takes people to artist studios, whether they're in the Purple Banner or not. You can sort of talk to that business and say you're open. So that limit of 6 would probably prevent a lot of those van tours from coming to you as an artist. So I'd like to see that reconsidered for that reason. Also, I take a Pilates class in a woman's home, and she has 2 or 3 of us at a time, and we're always careful to be parked off the street. And one of the reasons I can afford to do Pilates is because she's doing it from home, so she doesn't need to charge us $100 an hour to participate. So my concern about the 6 visitors a day is that, businesses like that I want to be able to patronize and make use of would become non-viable. So that's definitely a concern. And finally, I'm thinking about the farm stands I'd like to go to. I'm sure there's more than 6 of us who drop by in a day to buy stuff from our local farm stands. So I'd like to see that particular section of Bylaw 722 removed and have the SCRD can, make a separate bylaw and give us more time for feedback. And I'd like to see the art crawl and studio visits be made explicitly legal, not have them be illegal events that you're just not choosing to enforce. On some other topics, I like Juan Straw's recommendation to require electric fencing for rabbits and chickens. I think that's an excellent idea. I don't mind roosters in my neighborhood. I'd be open to having them allowed. Dogs make more noise than roosters. I'm open to having smaller properties be allowed to have chickens and rabbits and allowed to have more of them and more beehives, because I'm really interested in self-sufficiency on the coast. And let's see. And also I agree with Jerry that I'd like to be allowed to have a single person eventually come to work with me in my home-based business, because I'd like to be able to create a job for someone. I have some other things to say, but I see my time is up. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Okay, thank you very much, Allison. And once again, you can put your hand up to speak again if you wish. But right now, it is 8:30. We are going to take a 10-minute break and come back directly at 8:40. And the first one up on the list will be Katie Schindler, and after Katie Schindler will be Karen Taylor. So we will see you all in 10 minutes. Have a good chance to stretch as we continue through this bylaw public hearing for bylaw 722. Okay, thank you. I'll give everybody your 1 minute warning before we get started again with our public hearing on Bylaw 722. Okay, and we are at 8:40 p.m. So we will bring everybody back to our public hearing for bylaw bylaw 722. And next up on our speakers list is Katie Schindler. After Katie Schindler, we have Karen Taylor. So Katie, we will be bringing you in here and unmuting you, and if you can introduce your first and last name and go ahead, you have your 3 minutes.
Hi, I hope this is working. My name's Katie Schindler. I live in Upper Roberts Creek and I run a home-based business. I operate nature-based education programs based out of our property on Grauman Road. And this is in response to sorry, I just muted that. I joined the public hearing to provide comment pertaining to the home-based businesses in the SCRD. So I've reviewed the documents on the SCRD website, including what we heard reports. And I understand that the SCRD is introducing bylaws to home-based businesses in response to public concerns regarding scale of home business operations. I think this makes sense, and I can understand that the SCRD is wanting to encourage home businesses to, not impact neighbors. They want to reduce excess noise, traffic, parking, and volume of people. For home businesses that are on large to the neighbors are going to be minimized just based on the scale. And I don't feel like that is recognized by the SCRD at this time. I would like to request that the proposed bylaw be clarified to include different staff numbers and regulations for larger properties. I didn't raise this earlier, and I have been watching this over the summer, which has been difficult because summer is crazy. But I didn't raise this earlier in the public hearing process because the printed text in the proposed amendments actually says that the limits are only applying to properties that are less than 5,000 meters squared, 5,000 square meters or whatever. So over the weekend, I knew that this public hearing was approaching. I reached out to the SCRD, and my email that I got today was actually saying that, in quotes, it was obviously a typo and it applied to all sized properties. So I wanted to be present in this meeting today to just say that I don't believe that the public is aware of the proposed amendments applying to properties that are larger than 5,000 square meters. And I think that we need to have a longer, we need to have, I'm missing the words, but we need to have a longer discussion period on this. And we need to respond adequately and amend this going straight to vote, since, there is actually a typo on the SCRD website. And I really think that any properties that are larger than 5,000 square feet or square meters should have different staffing and childcare numbers for those properties. And thank you guys so much. Sorry, I'm quite nervous. I'm not a good public speaker, but thank you so much for all of your thought and time that has gone into this. And I really appreciate being able to give my feedback. So thank you.
You did very well, Katie. Don't worry about that. You did fantastic. Thank you so much for speaking up and having your voice heard. That's what this process is all about, and that's all we care about. And if you need a little extra time, or just a couple of moments to to collect. Like, I mean, we want to make sure that this is an open, transparent process, and that everyone is heard and heard as many times as they need to be heard. So that's what our goal is here. So thank you, Katie. We'll move you back into the gallery. And up next, we have Karen Taylor. After Karen Taylor, we have Alexis Bach. So Karen, if you can introduce first and last name, and then we will have your 3 minutes. After Karen, once again, is Alexis. Okay, Karen.
Well, strangely enough, Karen's developed a much deeper voice this evening, but
Oh
my name's
my.
David. It's amazing what you can do. So my name's David Taylor. Karen is obviously my wife, and she's an artist and works out of her home studio. And I've been listening all evening to the comments and the feedback that you guys have been receiving. And I feel it's imperative to have all our voices heard in this process. Now, clearly, this is a very extensive bylaw, and lots of good work has obviously gone into it. And there are no doubt significant parts of it that are very valuable and relevant. But my comments relate to the part particularly relevant to home-based businesses, which as residents here on the coast, and as my wife is a very engaged artist here on the coast, is so fundamental to both the character and nature of this environment in which we enjoy living. So really, my question to you as planners is, why is it necessary to impose such draconian and prescriptive limitations on home-based businesses? How do you decide what is an appropriate number of pre-scheduled visitors per day? I haven't had the time to research what other jurisdictions do in this regard, but I can only imagine these are vastly more prescriptive and limiting than many other jurisdictions in this particular instance. I would rather urge you to take the alternative approach that rather than write down highly prescriptive measures, which frankly are going to be extremely difficult for a lot of businesses to stay viable, take the alternative view, which is allow home-based businesses to do what they have been doing. And should they disturb their neighbors, which nobody wants to see happen, provide a process by which neighbors who are disturbed have a right to get heard and to have their complaints both addressed and changed. And make it more the onus on dealing with the problem rather than trying to stop the problem in the first place by limiting the home-based businesses. So I think the methodology you're using, to me, will always fall short of the goal it's intended to achieve. So we also have this point that, here we are in the post-COVID recovery world when you're going to do things that are actually going to be counterproductive economically, which I think is out of sync with the rest of the world these days. So I'd urge you to relook at that. I would also, make the note that as public servants, you're paid by the public and our taxes. And therefore, I think it's imperative that you listen to the public on this occasion. And indeed, all I have heard tonight are people objecting to various elements of this bylaw. So I would ask you to look at yourself in the mirror and consider whether you're really representing the public with the latest draft. My request is that you defer. We only heard about this 24 hours ago, so we've had very little time to consider it in detail. I would ask you to defer it until after the elections and engage with greater public consultation and allow the new council to take consideration of it. Thank you for your time and for your good work.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karen Taylor, or Dave Taylor, as you're known as. Thank you very much for that. Up next, we have Alexis Bach. And then after Alexis, we have Tammy. Alexis, you're up, please.
Hello, my name is Alexis Bach. I'm an artist that lives on the Sunshine Coast, but I don't operate out of a home-based business. I have the pleasure and privilege of being the executive director of Fiberworks Studio and Gallery up in Pender Harbor, which also isn't part of this bylaw. But I felt that I needed to speak on this matter. Not just around the art crawl, but Marlene brought it up earlier, the Purple Banner Tour. And the Purple Banner Tour is one of those opportunities that happens all year round where you can have the flag up and people driving by, tourists, all that kind of stuff, can see that purple flag and just drop in. And the opportunity, same thing for the art tours that happen with that art bus, is the opportunity for the public and for visitors and, locals alike, so many people come and bring visitors, say, oh, we've come to the gallery today and, we brought our friends, and then they say, oh, we've come to Art Crawl and we've come back. But that spontaneity of allowing somebody who is traveling to have the interaction with an artist specifically and speak to them about their work in their studio is so impactful for the visitor and for the artist, and it generates this wonderful memory experience, as opposed to, oh, we have to plan and we have to call ahead, and and how do you make, and oh, maybe you're not open that day, all that kind of stuff. So it's really limiting on human interaction and on the importance of that connection. And so there are other things that I wanted to say, but I've gotten distracted. Oh, that was my question. So this 6, it's been brought up many, many times. I've been looking through, I found out about this only 24 hours ago, but I've been looking through the bylaws. I can't see the 6 anywhere. And I know that this is a place for us to comment, but how did you come up with 6, and why appointment only? Like, where did that reasoning come from is my question.
Yuli or Jonathan, do you want to, are you able to comment on where the 6 came from? Please.
Chair, yes, I would like to address that question. So it was based on research we have done before we introduced the draft bylaw. It's also comparable to some of other municipalities. The main purpose of having a level of control over home-based business is to distinguish it from a retail or commercial use. So for example, if you have more than 6 or a lot of visitors per day, so it's likely will become more like a retail or commercial use, which is more suitable in commercial areas.
Thank you, Yuli.
But why appointment only? Like, why? Like, that's my question as well too. Is why? Because we brought up farm stands and we've brought up, classes. There's people who host, what about all the like horseback riding lessons and stuff like that. So you can't have people coming in who have, who are leasing their horse at a farm. Is that considered a home-based business where they would have to make an appointment then to come and see their horse?
Jonathan, I see you've unmuted. Did you want to take that, or Yuli?
I can start out with some general high-level comments there. As Yuli mentioned, a lot of this was done based on research from other bylaws, sort of looking and scanning for best practices on how to place some regulations on home-based business to ensure that it doesn't sort of go into the sort of more commercial industrial sort of realm of running a business. In terms of farm stands, there's some different regulations for that. So just point that out. They're not falling under the same as home-based business. And Yuli, I don't know, do you have any other comments on that?
My other comments is regarding the appointment. And again, yeah, it is just to set a level of control of the type of business, because it's a home-based business is meant to be an auxiliary use to the principal use of the property. It's not supposed to be the primary use. So again, it is a level of control. So we can definitely look into it to see if anything we could do to accommodate maybe a different
listening to his
type of regulation.
Go away.
Alexis, we're going to move you into the gallery. If you would like to speak again, please make sure you put your hand up and we'll bring you back in at that time. But we're going to continue on through our speakers list for the first time. Next up, we have Tammy. After Tammy, we have Kayla Henderson. So Tammy, you're up, please.
Hi, my name is Darcy Clark.
Okay.
I've run a home business on the coast for 31 years here. And I'm really worried. I only heard about this today, so I haven't had any chance to even look at the bylaw. I'm very concerned with how fast this is being pushed through. I mean, I managed to catch the last reading. I don't know where I was for the first two readings because I wasn't on holidays. I was available. I was here. So I'm not sure how I missed it or what the protocol is for the SCRD to announce these things. But I'm really worried about the timeliness of this draft and this bylaw. And I'm really worried that it's being pushed through too fast without a multiple of people who are affected by the bylaw. I spoke to a few people today when I learned about this coming up, and nobody else has heard about it. So I don't know if they're listening or what, but I hope they are. And I hope they're here to say their word. But I really want to encourage the board to delay this bylaw update and let the new group that's coming work it out so that they can give some notice so we can all have our word. Being on the coast for as long as I have, the coast is really based on small community, small business. These are the things that are in our roots. And I feel deeply about that. And, you know, there's so much that can be said. And I'm really sorry that I'm not very learned on the bill and how it even affects me. But I just really, the residential home businesses are so valuable on the coast. And I don't understand why you want to control them. And I too, like one of my former speakers has said, want to encourage you to put in a system that deals with the complaints rather than making a mass coverage that affects all of us home business people because one or two bad apples is causing a problem. And I know I'm out of time, and I really appreciate you guys for what you're doing and all that you have to go through. And I know it's not a very, it's a tough thing to do. So I just want to take my hat off to you, but I really want you to delay this and give us time to look it over so that we can give it what it's due. Thank you for your time, and I really appreciate you letting me speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Thank you, Darcy. And if you wish to speak again, please make sure that you do put your hand up, and we'll bring you in on the second round. Next up, we have
Hi there, my name is Kayla Henderson. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can, Kayla. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I've been a resident of the coast most of my life. However, I'm a new entrepreneur and artist in the SCRD district. Please forgive me with my lack of understanding with the bylaws at this time. I only became aware of this as of yesterday and have not had proper chance to prepare. This alone is concerning. I feel that pushing this bylaw through is rushed, and I question the motives of this. I am in agreement with the others in the dissatisfaction on the number of people allowed on the premises and by appointment only. This is concerning for the art crawl as well as other art events and many reasons already stated. I respect the need for control regarding reflecting retail businesses. However, running retail instead of a home business is a completely different platform, and putting this on artists and entrepreneurs without proper thought is problematic. I can somewhat try to understand that there may be privacy concerns with neighbors and having public go in and out of close proximity properties. However, simply restricting to a maximum number does not seem like the solution. My frustration with implementing a bylaw without a proper solution is constantly increasing in our community. This concern, everything just feels very rushed. There's lots of things to consider regarding taxes, regarding bylaws, regarding commercial properties. Forcing this kind of restriction on new artists and new entrepreneurs and forcing them into a newer prospect seems very restrictive and concerning. As a side note regarding the rooster issue, I feel like this is a really random and illogical issue, as there's many noises to be made around regarding tractors, machines, dogs, any other things throughout the day. I simply don't understand why roosters are specifically an issue. And I feel that some of the rules aren't necessarily being thought out in regards to there should be no outdoor storage of materials, equipment, containers, or finished products. And it must not produce a public offense or nuisance of any kind, including noise, smoke, dust, toxic or noxious material, odor, heat, etc. I feel like that seems not exactly explained properly, and it just seems misleading and confusing at this time. I appreciate the effort that's gone into all of this work, but as a public person and a new entrepreneur, it just seems rushed and confusing. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Kayla. We will move back into the gallery. Next up, we have MS Martin. And then after MS Martin, we have Angie Gershu. So MS Martin, if you can introduce your first and your last name, and you've got 3 minutes.
Hello, hi all of you, and thank you for your time this evening. It's been a long evening already. My name is Megan Martin. I'm a resident of Half Moon Bay. I am very passionate about this and echo most of the comments made here, that the speed of this is clearly unacceptable. I wonder if you realize that this is the first day of school, and how many parents are in, and how many families on the coast are in transition of, in many ways, the season out of COVID and now into school again, and not having the time to see that this has come up. I echo the concern with the haste of the 1 and 2, and now this is our chance to speak, but it's not enough, you guys. It's not enough. This is a miniature omnibus. You have jammed so much into this. Nobody has the time to look at this and adequately respond to this. I have spent the last 2 decades looking and researching and dealing with federal omnibuses and providing feedback for that. This is a miniature reflection of that. What's going on? What is this, you guys? We have sustainability, we have families, we have an era, a time where we need, and we have capacity. Families have been here for decades or less, growing food, supplying the community with food, supplying the community with resources in terms of therapy, art, community programming, horse therapy, equine therapy, yes, I echo the 6. I echo the roosters, the bees. This is sustainability for our ecosystems, for the regrowth of our fruit and vegetables and protein. Do we all want to just turn to the establishment and pay the high prices? Like, you guys, this is So I think my time's up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Megan, for your comments. We are going to move you into the gallery, and we are going to bring in Angela Gershu. After Angela, we have Chris Hergesheimer. So Angela, first and last name, and your 3 minutes, please.
Hi, I'm Angela Gersh, and I live on the Sunshine Coast. I've visited up to 25 years, 3 times a year, as my former husband grew up here. And in September 2015, I moved up here because I couldn't afford rent on the lower mainland anymore and had to find a place to live. My son, who has autism, lives with me. The Sunshine Coast is not like other communities. We live on the mainland that is only accessible by ferry, and most families that live up here need up to 3 jobs just to try to make ends meet. I, for one, am a person with disability, mobility disability. I got told 2 Fridays ago that my left knee is toast. It's compromised my left ankle. I can't find a job in the community because nobody in this community has access, mobility access for disabled persons. I have 1 client. I cannot find more than 1 client, and that is to help make ends meet on my disability income that doesn't even cover the cost of food or gas or anything else that's going up these days. Like, I think it's unfair of others to decide my quality of life. I've been told that I have to stay off my leg, which means I now have to figure out how to make my home wheelchair accessible. I'm going to have to start ordering things online, which means we are going to have more than 6 people come a day, possibly, to deliver groceries, to deliver medicines, to deliver stuff that I have to purchase online because I can no longer go to the store to do my own grocery shopping. I would like to start an art group I live in a mobile home park that is senior, 55 plus. I would like to start an art group for people in the neighborhood. So because I can't get out, like 6 people a day, that's ridiculous. The only way I can make money is from my home, and if I can't even do that, like this, I don't get it, guys. I really don't. I don't know how to help myself because I don't have enough money to do what I need to do the renovations in my house. I have to grow veggies in my garden to sustain myself. I can't even water them right now. They're all drying out and falling to the earth and being composted because, which means I don't get to eat. Like, I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Angie, thank you for your comments. You have been heard. We're going to move you back into the gallery. And if you'd like to speak again, please raise your hand, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Chris Hergesheimer. After Chris, we have Beth Hawthorne. Chris?
Yes, good evening. My name is Chris Hergesheimer, and I can't think of a better way to spend a couple hours of a Tuesday night than on this public forum, listening to people. And I also want to acknowledge the work that's gone into this very complex. And I know there's lots and lots of work at the level of staff and at the board level over the last number of years. With regards to food and agriculture, which has been my experience here on the coast for the last 15 years, I just wanted to follow up on some of Cassandra's points raised by the One Straw Society. We're seeing a big discourse about food security and food resiliency and how this is important, and yet friction is being unnecessarily introduced into a system. And in fact, the system is already very complex. It's very challenging on people, and there's no excuse for making the system more complex through unnecessary regulations. In fact, we should be removing all friction and from agriculture activities, and in fact actively encouraging and promoting that through incentives for people to keep bees and chickens. So on behalf of One Straw, I think I can safely say that we would like to see the food and agriculture related stuff be put into abeyance, at least allow us to engage with some of our stakeholders and more public input into that. I also just want to comment on the home-based businesses, and I won't mention the numbers and things like that. 4 years ago, there were an estimated 4,500 businesses on the coast, and we know that that about half of those are in the rural areas. So to follow up on Yuli's point about, being commercial and happening in commercial areas, it's very expensive to have rents. There's very limited vacancy. And from a climate justice perspective and an economic development strategy, we need to be looking 10 to 15 years ahead and saying, where are the jobs going to be? Are we expecting people to commute from Secret Cove down to Sea Shelter Gibsons to open up a shop when they can conduct their business from their home? Do we need people from Langdale to drive to Davis Bay every single day? Or is home-based business the projection of a climate-smart economic development strategy? And I truly think that we're off the mark here with unnecessary restrictions. Meanwhile, this bylaw is adding things that aren't really crisis level. And meanwhile, the issues of density and the absolute gray area, don't ask, don't tell around RVs and tiny homes and other illegal dwellings that are being occupied remains completely unaddressed. So thank you very much for the work and for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Chris. We are going to move you back into the gallery. Up next, we have Beth Hawthorne. Beth, if you can introduce yourself, and then you've got your 3 minutes.
Hi there. Yeah, my name's Beth Hawthorne, and I've been a resident in Roberts Creek for 16 years. I live on 5 acres, and I'm an artist. I'm a maker, I'm an artist, I'm a potter, and I have a studio on the ground floor of my home. And so what I'm hearing is that I am welcome to be a maker and have a home business. And I'm also allowed to sell my wares as long as it's my wares and I make my own products. I don't bring in other people's stuff. But now I'm hearing that I'm limited to how I can sell. So I'm allowed to make, I'm allowed to sell, but how I sell is now being limited. I do rely on open houses, actually, quite a bit. I rely on open houses as well as by appointment. People who call me spontaneously, which is great. The art crawl is phenomenal for me. And without doing open houses, I really have to really think about if it's viable for me, if I can do this. And I would have to think about other options. Maybe I do an online store and spend my time on my computer setting up a packaging and shipping section in my studio. And those things don't align with me. They're actually not who I am, and it's not what I want to be doing with my time. So instead, I've created a really lovely space, which is a little retail venue. I invite people in, tourists and locals. I connect with people, and that's who I am. That's who I'm aligned with. And I like to offer an educational component. People come into my space and I give them a tour. They may or may not buy something. And that's the way I want my life to roll. So I am concerned about the limitations that are placed on myself and many others. And I just really, encourage a rethinking of this. And so that's it. Thank you so much. And I look forward to the next rounds and see how things roll out with this.
Okay. Thank you very much, Beth. And we'll move you back into our gallery. Now, next up, We have Leanne Turnbull, and after Leanne Turnbull, we have Peter Sugden. So Leanne and then Peter. So Leanne, go ahead.
Hi there. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to respond to this bylaw. I too appreciate all the work that you do and have an inkling of how much that can be. It sounds like you've done a lot on Zoom during COVID, and thank you very much for keeping working. I too have some concerns about some aspects of the bylaw. I agree with a lot of it. There's a couple of points that I wanted to make. I'm Leanne Turnbull, I forgot to say that. And I'm a property owner. I've been a property owner for 28 years. I reside in Area F in Grantham's Landing. I think that the home-based business section will inadvertently have a major effect on the rural areas. I think it's very much too prescriptive. I do understand the need to control some things, but I think as people have spoken about it being the lifeblood of the Sunshine Coast and there being 4,500 home-based businesses. And I think we're mostly rural and we have a very casual lifestyle. I do not think that the rural areas of the Sunshine Coast are comparable to a municipality. In a municipality, people are living side by side with very little setback. And so I think that the fact that we're rural needs to be taken into account. Other people have spoken about the lack of notice. I was trying to research this last night, and I went to the public materials and went in the home-based business. It says, subject to a set of conditions to control the scale of operation and mitigate neighborhood impact, home-based business is permitted in any zone where residential uses are permitted. This regulation is intended to reflect the trend of working from home and support the economic vitality and diversity of the Sunshine Coast. Well, I agree with that, but then there's this great big hammer coming down about how you need to conduct your business and all of these restrictions that I think will unfairly impact artists, people who do Pilates and studio tours, all of those things that have already been mentioned. And the non-resident employee thing, I think, is also problematic. People have, accountants have bookkeepers that come in. And the final thing is the kennels. In Area F, kennels are allowed. So I would hope that we don't inadvertently remove kennels from Area F, and I believe it also in Area E. And thank you very much for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Lee. It's a pleasure to have you join us for a public hearing where you get to be on the other side of it, isn't it?
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Up next, we have Peter Sugden, and after Peter Sugden, we have Catherine Nichols. Peter, please introduce yourself, and you've got 3 minutes.
Yes, hi, good evening. I'm Peter Sugden, and I live in Roberts Creek. I've owned our house here since about 2000. I've been really following a lot of the commentary, and I'm not going to repeat about the home-based business, but a lot of good comments have been made, of course, and I agree with a lot of it. I haven't had the chance, unfortunately, to read Bylaw 722. It's a draft form, as I understand it. But just a comment to beekeeping. My father was a beekeeper in Ontario, and two of my neighbors here in Roberts Creek, within about 100 meters of me, are beekeepers. And I have absolutely no problem with bees, and I think that we should not try to become pure urbanites by trying to isolate ourselves from bees. They are sacred to everything that we have in terms of making agriculture work. And similarly, from a self-sustainability point of view, I think there are a lot of people, especially with the upcoming inflation that we're experiencing, that are going to be, in some cases, quite reliant on poultry and or rabbit keeping. And so I would seek and beg that that SCRD minimize the restrictions on that kind of activity, because it is something that for some people is going to be very, very vital to them surviving. The one more point, which regards construction, and I don't see it in here, but since you're speaking about auxiliary dwellings and secondary suites and sizes of structures, in Roberts Creek, my next door neighbor just recently built a wonderful house, and it ended up being a 3-story house, and he built it about 5 feet off the lot line. Fortunately, it wasn't my lot line, it was the neighbor on the other side. And I would suggest, and I think this kind of consideration has been already going into place, I think in District of Sechelt, and that is that sight lines, and in particular, the effect of new construction on the ability of on the light that falls on existing buildings in the vicinity should be considered. So, and I think that this should be really, if you're building an omnibus bill, let's put in something in there about consideration for your neighbor for sightlines. Fortunately, I was not affected, but the lady on the other side who was affected basically gave up, sold her house, and moved away within about 3 months of the Colossus being built. So I would really urge SCRD to consider and force a consideration of sight lines by the neighbors when building permits are being approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. We will move you into the gallery and bring Catherine Nichols in. After Catherine Nichols, we have Kelly Bucks. So Catherine, over to you. You've been unmuted. Go for it.
Thank you and good evening. I do appreciate being allowed to speak. It's a privilege, and it's great of you all to sit and listen to us.
First and last name, please.
Sorry, Catherine Nichols. I'm a property owner in Area E, Elphinstone. I've been listening to everything that's been going by. I am an artist. I'm unaffected mostly by the results of the bylaw. But one of the reasons I moved to the Sunshine Coast 5 years ago was the unique quality of this place. It's a quality that to me is founded on small businesses and the interaction you can have with people. The thought of having all of these small businesses try and move, or even a portion of these small businesses try and move into retail or non-existent, as far as I've discovered on the Sunshine Coast commercial space, to me is just not realistic for what we do. I appreciate the research that's gone into this and the understanding that, yes, some of us get a lot of people to our homes when we're running a business, but trying to put those people into what appears to be non-existent retail space makes no sense to me. The small businesses that are operated in people's homes, to me, are the backbone of this community. I can't understand why in a time of recovery, the limitations are being placed on small business. The small business to me is what drives the economy of the coast, keeps us all eating and buying things and moving the dollars around. To restrict the viability of those small businesses, to me, can be nothing but damaging. I question a bylaw where artists, architects, and beekeepers are all struggling to understand that this seems to be a very, very broad net that's been thrown across a whole area, and where obviously, or what appears to be obvious to me, a lot of smaller considerations need to be taken into it. When you're comparing the noise of a rooster, which I would much rather listen to than the gentleman who lives next door to me who runs his dump truck at 5 o'clock in the morning in preparation for going to work, I don't understand how this can all fit into the same bylaw. It seems to be a disconnected collection of issues. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and I really hope that the board will take some time to reconsider all of these issues and defer the decision.
Okay, thank you very much, Catherine. We'll move you into the gallery and then bring in Kelly Bax. After Kelly Bax, we have Janice. Okay, so Kelly, over to you, please.
Hello, my name's Kelly Bax. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Kelly. Go ahead.
I'm a property owner here in Roberts Creek. I also run a home-based business that's art-based, and as a lot of people have been saying, that the readings of the bylaw does seem a bit rushed. It seems like the current board would like to have this wrapped up before their term comes to an end, and not have to foust it upon the following board. But that may be inevitable. It has a lot of flaws. It's not a bylaw that's based on a rural setting. It seems to lack the understanding of a rural environment, and there's a lot of reasons why people move to rural areas for the freedom and for the ability to use the land to their use, to grow their own food, to feel that freedom, and to live with the land and to live with their neighbors. Until now, we've had a complaints-based bylaw for home-based businesses, and I understand the need to try to move away from that. But to limit the amount of people that can partake, and to limit, as Chris Hergesheimer was speaking on earlier, our food security is a really important thing for us to be able to create our own foods, for us to share amongst ourselves on the coast, because we are a ferry dependent community, and without food security, we can become isolated from the rest of the province and be in very deep trouble. We should be working hard to open doors for any type of food production that we can. And the people who want to live at home and create their own businesses, like Beth and like many of the other people that were speaking earlier, I think that's part and parcel of the freedom that comes with living in a rural environment as well. It's not an urban environment. I know that our district is made up of both urban and rural, and I know that this bylaw covers the rural sections, but there's too much in it that doesn't take into account that difference. Now, I've lived in downtowns of large metropolitans, and I understand the needs for rurals to live side by side with people in a big city. But Roberts Creek and Half Moon Bay are not big cities. I have 1 3/4 acres, and that's a small lot for around here. And as an artist, I know that the art crawl is a very important thing in my year. And thank you for all the work that you do. But I say reconsider and allow the next board to deal with this very important item.
Okay, thank you very much, Kelly. We will move you into the gallery, and we will bring in Janice. After Janice, we have Elizabeth. So Janice, if you can introduce yourself, first and last name, please.
Hi, I'm Janice Williams, and I've lived on the Sunshine Coast for about 23 years, and I love it. And I think part of the problem might be that this is such a unique community, the Sunshine Coast. I think all the research, nonetheless, I think we're trying to squeeze a round peg or a square peg into a round hole, as far as trying to sort of almost discourage what becomes almost the essence of living up here, which is that I don't think there's any small business up here that is deliberately trying to upset their neighbor or do anything but be part of this community. I mean, I've heard more people tell me horror stories about short-term rentals destroying their peace and coming in and going out than I've ever heard about any small business. And I just want to say, Lori, it's really nice to see your face. And I had a really nice conversation with you about a month ago, which I really appreciated, which brings up another problem, which is almost like a Keystone Cops thing, which is that how in the hell are you ever going to be able to get enough bylaw officers to run around trying to enforce all these limits on people coming in and going out? It almost seems ludicrous to me because, I mean, just recently I tried to complain about something that was in the middle of happening, and I was told that there'd be a 2-week delay. And I was trying to explain that by that time it would be a done deal and everything would be dead and buried. But I mean, it almost seems like an impossible thing to try to enforce. And I really appreciate all the work that you put into that sort of war and peace giant thing that you put together, this bylaw 722. I got 2 emergency emails this morning that I hadn't even heard of this being the public hearing. And I think that's the problem. A lot of people didn't have time because in the last week, it's been really hot. People have been desperately trying to water their gardens with whatever they could get out there. People have been trying to have one last long weekend before everything goes back to whatever. And I think a lot of people just weren't clued in that this was going to happen. And I was shocked. I squeezed in with less than a minute and a half to go. My one little 1-sentence thing, which is, could you please defer this? Because it's so huge. There's so much stuff in there. And it's like such a diverse number of issues that are all being addressed that it's almost overwhelming. It's like a huge bouquet. And we have such tiny amount of time to look at everything. So I appreciate the work you put into it, but I have to say, I really believe it should be deferred until there's a new set of people being brought in with the election. And thanks for letting me talk.
Thank you very much, Janice. It was a pleasure to hear your voice again, even though I couldn't see your face. But so we're going to move you back into the gallery, and we're going to move over to Elizabeth. After Elizabeth, we have Eva T. So Elizabeth, if you could begin, please, first and last name, and you've got 3 minutes. Elizabeth, you need to unmute yourself, please. Elizabeth?
Hello?
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Hi.
All right. Hi, Elizabeth.
Technical glitch, sorry.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Okay, so if you could introduce yourself, first and last name, and I'll make sure you have your 3 minutes, okay?
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Thomas. I hope you don't mind, but I do not live on the coast. I wish I did, but I have a lot of connections to the coast. I have family who live there. I have uncles and aunts who were born there. My family had a business there for many years. So I've been visiting the coast for the past 50 some odd years. And I presently have family in Half Moon Bay and Seashell, friends all over the coast. But it's such an enviable place to live. And one of the things that I enjoy about the coast is the community feeling, the Cooper's Green Festival, the Crawl, which is, everybody's reiterated this, but the Crawl is such a huge and wonderful event. And it brings so many people to the coast. So much spontaneity happens, and spontaneity does not happen when you have to make a reservation to drop into an artist's dwelling and see their work. I really don't understand that thinking. I think it's unfortunate, and like everybody else, I'm hoping that you will take more time to consider this. It's such a great community, and it's being stifled by some of these bylaw intentions. And I think you just need to listen to everybody who's been on here tonight. And I haven't heard a word of support, I'm afraid. And I appreciate all the work you do. I know it doesn't go well received sometimes, but I know how much work goes into being on a council. That's all I have to say. You always think you've got more to say, but just want you to rethink it and know that people off the coast love it just as much as you do, and care about it deeply. So thank you for the time, and good night.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. If you do think of other things you want to say, you are welcome to put your hand up and come in for a next round. But with that, we are going to move over to Eva. After Eva, we have Donna. So Eva, if you could introduce yourself, first and last name, and then you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Ava Taylor, and I've been living in Langdale now for 2 years, or a little over. And in that short time, it's become exceptionally clear that the strengths of the coast are the vibrancy and resiliency of the local businesses and the people who make up the coast and its community. I can appreciate that you're probably trying to balance many different components here. And I'm just personally quite upset having heard a lot of the stories today about how far-reaching the impacts of these bylaw changes would be in so many different scenarios. It's quite clear from the feedback provided during this call, and having only personally found out about this hearing myself this very morning, that this process has felt anything but transparent given the magnitude of the changes being proposed. It's clear that people want to create income on the coast, they want to grow the economy, be food resilient, and continue to build a vibrant and sustainable community. And this seems like it should be the same as your objectives as public servants of the coast, and yet you're introducing seemingly arbitrary restrictions that would deeply and negatively impact numerous families in many different ways. I don't quite understand what the problem is that you're trying to solve by controlling small businesses and some of the fashions described, as well as some of the architectural implications that we've heard about. I feel uncomfortable hearing the word control specifically being used when discussing home businesses by the government. You say that the number 6 is based on research into other jurisdictions, but why are you looking elsewhere when we live in such a unique rural environment as highlighted by restrictions such as the ferry? Why are you not looking to set an example by being forward-looking and implementing and adjusting bylaws that encourage community and economic development and food production? My main point that I want to make, as so many good points have already been raised, is that not only has the world dramatically changed in the past 3 years due to the pandemic, but it's also being changed in dramatic, unpredictable ways by climate change and other uncontrollable forces. The cost of living and food and materials continues to rise, and in addition, the world of work is simply changing. You have an opportunity to look forward to consider how different work may look today and in the near future as it continues to evolve, particularly for younger generations. It's just not realistic to think that more businesses won't grow out of homes for many different reasons. Traditional retail outlets are just not how many businesses are starting to operate today, particularly for those who are creative, innovative, and entrepreneurial, who we should be encouraging to come to the coast, not inhibit and drive away. In agreement with many others today, I implore you to press pause and revisit this bylaw with the new board in light of the severe impacts it would have on people's livelihoods and well-being in a rural setting, and focus instead on developing a productive and effective complaints resolution system to solve multiple issues without creating unnecessary limitations that could crush local businesses and negatively impact the Sunshine Coast and its residents' current and future. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Ava. Appreciate you tuning in and speaking to us this evening. Up next, I have Donna. After Donna, I have Landon Dix. And after Landon, that's the end of the first round of speakers, or pardon me, speakers who have spoken once. So we'll be going into the second round, or to the speakers for the second time. So if you have not yet had a chance to speak, or you have something that's come up that you wanted to say, please make sure you raise your hand now. But otherwise, we're going to go to Donna and then Landon Dix. So Donna, first and last name, please.
Thank you. My name's Donna Sugar. I live in Roberts Creek. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I won't repeat what has already been said so eloquently by so many people. I'm in agreement with much of what has been talked about. I want to talk about the public engagement piece. People have talked about how hastily this is being done, and I don't know that it was hasty per se, but the public engagement has been very minimal. There was one meeting held in Roberts Creek in person. I attended that meeting. This is covering 4 electoral areas, and only one in-person meeting in one electoral area was held, and one Zoom meeting, and I think there were about 27 people. That's not enough for a bill or a bylaw of this magnitude that covers the geographic scope that it does. So I think that is an issue that I'm very concerned about. I think that this was started off by saying that the changes were not very significant, and I think we've heard that they are very significant to a lot of people. Unfortunately, they're not significant enough. And I did speak at Roberts Creek School that evening about a missed opportunity to actually really address some of the issues that we're facing now. Jonathan suggested that the SCRD can choose when and when not to enforce bylaws. And don't worry, the art crawls just fine because we know how popular it is. But one complaint can make a big difference. And there was something called Roberts Creek Arts Festival, very similar to the art crawl that was held once a year in May. There was a complaint and that thing is gone. And that is a big loss to the community. I attended the committee meeting on July 21st in the boardroom when second reading was being discussed. And it was said over and over again that while this is not going to be a perfect bylaw, we can make changes later. And I don't think that's the way to proceed. That puts the onus for making changes on the individual property owner who wants to do something valid that is not included in the bylaw. It's a cost in time and money to that property owner, and it's a one-off. It's not something that is an amendment that affects any other property but that one. So I don't think that that's really an effective way to proceed. I'm also worried about the timing. There's an election on October 15th, and I agree with people who are saying that this should be put off until the new board is in. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna, and good to hear from you once again, another former director who's getting to hear from, from the other side. So thank you so much for speaking up tonight. We're going to move over next to Landon Dix. After Landon Dix, we have Heather and Ken Knight. So Landon, first and last name, and you have your 3 minutes, please.
Hi, thanks, Lori. It's Landon Dix. Thank you to everybody involved in the meeting and for giving us a chance to speak here. I really want to just echo the sentiment that we've been hearing from every single speaker. This is a very large bill. I'm a resident of Area B and have a home-based business myself. There are certainly some things within the bill that I think are really great for our community, expanding sizes of auxiliary dwellings. But the moment that in a rural community, you start to enforce and control home-based businesses, I think it's taken away from the idea that we are a rural community. In Half Moon Bay, we have 2 general stores, 2 marinas, and a ton of home-based businesses. So where is the real estate? Where are they going? If you expect people to pack up in a time after, we're going through financial decline, after a lot of people have shifted to home-based businesses, it seems kind of like a backwards move. And we really need to consider we just don't have the room to do anything other than home-based business. So let's not try and control that at this moment. There are certain businesses in specific that have been targeted more than others in this proposal, such as like vehicle repair, and I just don't understand where do we expect those people to go, and why are we targeting them? It is a rural community, and one of the best things about living here is having the freedom to do what you like and run your own business from your own property. That's all. And thank you all for, this term. And I do think that this should definitely be discussed further by a new set of board members and directors. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Landon. We will move you into the gallery. And up next, we have Heather and Ken Knight, who are the end of our first round. So Heather and Ken, if I could get you to introduce yourself first and last name, and then you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Ken Knight, and my wife and I have lived in Roberts Creek for over 30 years. I was unaware of this bylaw and the hearing until today. Apparently, from the introduction here, advertising was done in the Coast Reporter, And that, I suppose, is the minimum requirement. However, it's, as you can see from this evening, it's completely inadequate as far as informing people who do not read that paper, which is like partly us. A general mailing to every household would be the one way to make sure everyone had access. The new bylaw is portrayed as being housekeeping or minor changes in the introduction, but I think, tonight we've clearly recognized that that portrayal is not related to the reality. My wife and I own the church on 1200 Roberts Creek Road. It's the old church that's there, and we own it. I'm speaking tonight to ask for changes to the proposed bylaw. And the bylaw referred to is, in the new one, is Part 12, Park and Assembly Zones. The church at 1200 Roberts Creek Road was built by the Anglican Church in about 1935 and was named St. Aidan's. At the same time, the sister church was built in Sechelt and named St. Hilda's. The pews and the kneeling prayer pads, along with signage, is still in the church. St. Aidan's operated for many decades. Hence, it has many families today in Roberts Creek that have important memories of services and attendances there. The church is well loved in the community, and many people have contacted us over the years to express how much they value that church. The new bylaw only allows for assembly. Church, as a category, has been removed and erased from the bylaw. It's not there any longer. We object to the scrubbing of church as a permitted use under the PA1 zoning and the scrubbing of the parking regulations in that regard. Under bylaw 310, the parking spaces required for a church is 0.25 spaces per seat. We're asking that that be reinstated. Secondly, we ask that a change be made to the building setback with regard to this zone, to the PA1 zone. Currently, the setback is 7.5 meters. The 7.5 meter building setback should be reduced to 3.75 meters at the most. There's never been an explanation of why such a large setback is needed. So we ask that the bylaw reduce it for all the permitted uses in that zone. I would like to see, pardon me. Oh, I'm out of time. I'm sorry.
You are out of time. You're welcome to put your hand up again, Mr. Knight, and okay. We'll bring you back in on the second round. But
okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That puts us to the end of the first time for submissions. So I am now going to call a second time for further submissions. And we are going to start that off with Clark Hamilton and then Brenda Sopel. So Mr. Hamilton, you are up for 3 additional minutes. Please, once again, state your first and last name, and then you've got 3 minutes.
Hi, actually, it's not Clark Hamilton, it's Doug Mulligan. I'm just at Clark's office here joining
Hi,
him.
Doug.
So, hi, so I guess I'm the end of the last.
Yes, round. I guess you are. So Doug Mulligan, okay.
Thanks. We, as a collective building community here, we had some meetings with senior staff about, this new bylaw, and one part of it in particular, which was the increase from a 7.5 meter setback to a 15 or now possibly 17 in certain. I don't understand exactly where it's different at this stage, but nonetheless, this increase in where it came from and where the number came from and why. And we had a meeting at the SCRD about this to try to get some answers as to, what was behind this. And a number of us building professionals, I live in Half Moon Bay. I've been here for 31 years. I've been a contractor for 31 years on the coast. And a number of us contractors expressed concern about this, as did, I think it was Josh Wallace mentioned it previously here too as well. And the impact on this and where this number came from. And we had a meeting at the SCRD, and it really wasn't coherently expressed to us where and why there was basically a doubling of this setback on the waterfront properties. We basically we got, which is similar responses to other people's concerns in here, which was we referred to other communities and other things. And to tie that in with how many people are, as I've listened through this whole thing, have concerns about, where these things are coming from and how restrictive they are. We shouldn't be looking to other communities. Maybe we should to just get some ideas. But as everybody here I've heard is expressed so very well, we're a very unique community. And I don't think that's being really considered as much as it should be relative to putting these conditions on these bylaws, such as, 6 people visiting, a local business. It's so restrictive, so not thought through. And then how that ties into how hastily this has been brought forth. For 3 years, there was a gap with COVID, and this thing started in, I believe, May or something like that of this year, this process to run this thing through. And so in a matter of months, we've gone from, nothing for 3 years to ramming this through in a matter of months, and how broadly it is affecting the community. It's just not okay. I think the board needs to defer this. I request that they do, and look at it more deeply as everybody's speak about, because there's so many parts that tie into this, especially with we're in post-COVID now, or somewhat post-COVID. COVID changed everything, especially things like home-based businesses, and how we're managing ourselves financially and through so many other aspects. I'm not even going to really dwell on my point of the setback thing anymore. It's more to do with, I think, as everybody's expressed here, our community and how unique it is, and how that needs to be considered to be supported in that unique way, instead of deferring to other municipalities as a basis and a direction for us to move in. It's cutting off and holding us back from evolving to what we need to and want to evolve into as a community, a very special one.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mulligan. We're at the end of your time, so we're going to move you back into the gallery. Feel free to raise your hand if you would like to speak again, either you or Clark. And we're going to move on to Brenda Sopel. Brenda, we're going to bring you in, and you've got 3 minutes. Once again, please introduce yourself, first and last name.
Brenda Sopel, a resident of Roberts Creek for many years, and I never got to finish some of my other comments, but that's fine. I would ask, and I will repeat everybody else, saying that this decision regarding this bylaw should be postponed. There has not been enough public engagement, and I think that we have been misled to think that this is merely a housekeeping. There's a lot going on here, and there's a lot of people. I calculated 12,782 people are affected by this. Occupied dwellings, 5,639. So it'd be nice to know how many of those are home-based businesses. The other thing is, I agree with a couple of the other speakers regarding mailing should be sent to every residence and every homeowner, regardless of where they are, because not everybody reads the Coast Reporter. We used to get something from one of the directors in our mailbox every month about what was going on, and we're not seeing any of that kind of engagement anymore. Also want to know the major issue we need to have food sustainability. What are you doing for farms that need water, or any of the individuals? I can't water my garden. How am I supposed to grow my vegetables if I can't water my garden? Let's fix the water problem before we get ahead of ourselves. There's been no discussion about how we're going to deal with the ferries. This has been an ongoing issue. Yulie, I have sent letters to you for years about this. I have never had any answers. You ask for the public's engagement, but you ignore it. And it's unfortunate. And I especially don't like being misled about how this is housekeeping and there's so much more going on. It's unconscionable that you would consider doing that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. We are going to move you into the gallery. And up next, we've got Mary D. and then Cassandra Fletcher. Mary, once again, first and last name, please.
Mary Deegan, property owner in Area E. I just want to say that I am deeply disturbed because I've heard it said numerous times, I've been to most of the meetings about this, that you're pulling from municipal documents to create this. We are not a municipality, we are a rural district. And I am deeply disturbed that you're bringing in municipal bylaw to create rural bylaw. It's not the same thing. I grew up in rural areas. It's very different, and it needs to be that way. We need to be allowed to have agriculture. It's a rural area. Agriculture is deeply ingrained in rural areas. And I think, you know, if I wanted to live in Gibsons or Seashell, I would have bought there, but I did not. I bought in a rural area so I could have a rural lifestyle. And I think that's really important to consider that. And I know that we're densifying and I know that we need housing and I support that. I'd really like to see, and I am seeing, the densification happening in our two municipalities, and that's really important because that's where our services are centered. And I'm just really dismayed that I've heard mentioned multiple times that you're using municipal bylaws to create rural bylaws. It's not compatible, and it's deeply concerning to me. On a whole other topic, because I am still concerned about poultry, there is a bird flu going on right now that puts us all at risk, all of our small flocks. Luckily, there's only been, I think, one in Powell River that got taken out, so we've been very lucky. But it's another reason that we need diversity, and we need lots of people to have roosters, and lots of people here have heritage birds, and that means that we have very small gene pools that we're working with. So we need to have diversity with that to keep those gene pools alive. We're raising heritage birds. There's no one here breeding birds commercially. We have to get them all off coast unless we breed our own. It makes us incredibly vulnerable when we have things like bird flu going on. So we really need to be encouraging people to have different styles of poultry and to be able to have the breeding stock to continue those cycles. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Up next, we have Cassandra. After Cassandra, we have Glenn Edwards. So Cassandra, go ahead, please.
Well, hello again, all you party animals. We're up late tonight. Anyway, like Stu, I want to mention that I also got an error trying to pull up the info package off your website. I wasn't not able to see any of the letters or anything.
Okay. Cassandra, first and last name, please.
Oh, Cassandra Fletcher. Robert. I'm going to get on a soapbox, just a little tiny little one. We're in a very dire position when it comes to food security. Right now, more than ever, farmers are thinking twice about starting their tractors due to gas prices. The situation in the Ukraine has knocked out the world's largest supply of fertilizer. The housing and labor crisis has made farm labor impossible to find, and the pandemic has prevented farmers from bringing in labor from other countries to normally pick up that slack. Wars, floods, droughts, supply chain disruptions, they're all putting our food further into trouble. So this means we rely more and more on food shipped in, from China and Mexico and Chile and beyond. And that makes us even more vulnerable. So we need to be doing everything possible to support our ability to be self-sustainable and to support local food production, regardless of lot size. So a couple of things I didn't get to last time around. Beekeeping. There's no known evidence to support restricting small lot hive numbers. So in fact, many small properties currently host large numbers of hives with no issue or impacts on land or water or crops or noise or safety. So we've been in discussion with the president of the Sunshine Coast Beekeeping Club, also on the Provincial Beekeepers Association, and with his support, we recommend not regulating beekeeping at all, but if you must, to allow at least 4 hives on lots less than a half acre, and to add definitions of what is a hive or a colony and what that consists of. I want to also acknowledge all the folks that are saying it's been pushed through or that they didn't know about this. I know that local government's been following the public engagement process through announcements and hearings and stuff, but we don't all use the same systems anymore of finding out what's going on, right? We don't watch local TV channels. We don't listen to local radio. Most of us don't read local newspapers anymore. So like a lot of organizations and government levels that seek community engagement and they get the same feedback of, I didn't know, we might want to just consider new means of notifying the public of these kinds of changes. And I think community groups, in particularly locally on social media, it's a super high impact way of reaching people. But yes, it's hard because of all the different ways we communicate. That said, while we support the general direction of the bylaw overall, I'd actually suggest pulling the section about agriculture, chicken and bees completely from this bylaw. Pull it out. Most other regions with good bylaws about small lot agriculture, they do so through a dedicated bylaw rather than trying to tuck it into a giant land use bylaw. And then like other folks on here, I'd like to see you guys put this into abeyance for review by the new incoming board, just to provide a bit more time and opportunity to engage folks and to do a bit more research. Thanks, party animals. Have a good night.
Thanks, Cassandra. And thanks for staying with us, party animals. So we're going to move you over to the gallery, and then we are going to bring in Glenn Edwards. We had Glenn Edwards on the list. Do we still have Glenn with us? Okay, I think we've lost Glenn Edwards. If Glenn comes up, then we will bring Glenn back in. Otherwise, we are going to go to Sandy Buck and then MS Martin, Megan Martin. So Sandy and then over to Megan Martin. Okay, Sandy.
Hello, my name is Sandy Buck and I'm in Area F. And I really want to applaud everybody who has really come to this meeting tonight. This is community. And again, I only heard about this a few hours before. So that means it was meant to be heard about, because I know a lot of you out there. I am part of the organization of Deer Crossing, the Art Farm, and we are about community building. There's so much I want to say, and I just really want to state how important a rural community is and how important we need to focus on food security, but not just food security, the security of our health, our mental health, our state. We've gone through, how should we say it, COVID. That has really deterred the mental health of our neighbors. Anyway, a lot of us can talk about that. And so we are here trying to create, mental health and ways that we can move towards a healthier way of living. One of the programs that we worked on is the rise of dementia. And that is, of the many things, is something about our community that by bringing it together, Beth Hawthorne spoke about bringing people into her studio as an education, but not just an education, to feel what it is to a pottery. Well, that sensory is so integral to the people who are living in states of mental health. I'm looking at my time, and I just wanted to put it back. So I just want to applaud the artists, not just the artists, the people are doing all the work out in the community. This is not over after tonight. I have never been more motivated to go out and speak for the community that did not hear about this. And being an artist and all those other artists out there, we can do this because that's what we do. We present back to the community what it is that they need, maybe want to hear, maybe don't want to hear. So you, Lee and Jonathan, you mentioned before, I think it was after Alexis back, about the 6, viewing the importance of having only 6 people come to your if you're an artist, customers come in, or potential customers, through appointment only. Where did you get that? And you said control. It was for the sake of control, so you're not a commercial organization. I don't understand that. Can you please go into detail about what it means to be, what is the control? Please, can you define control? Thank you.
Jonathan or Yuli, would you like to take on that question for clarification?
Thanks, Director Pratt. Thanks for the question, Sandy. When it comes to control, I don't know that maybe that's the best term to define, but rather it's about differentiating between uses that are clearly more of a commercial or industrial or assembly type of nature versus ones that are residential in nature. So that was the intent of the proposed bylaw with regards to home-based business, was to differentiate a home-based business from those more commercial, industrial, assembly type in nature uses. So that was the intent. We've had a lot of good comments about that tonight. So certainly something to be considered. I hope that helps to answer. I don't know if Yuli has anything more to add or not.
Okay. So Sandy, we're going to move you back into the gallery, and we are going to bring in MS Martin. Megan, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes, hi, Lori. Yes, thank you.
First and last name, please.
Megan Martin, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me a second time. And there are my manners. One of my notes I wanted to make is that we have all been very mindful and grateful of our time to speak. And I've heard the word of being privileged to speak here tonight. And that has pressed on something for me that I wanted to, this is why I came back with my hand raised, is the public office works for the people. So while we may be grateful that there's an organized administration to bring us together, it's not a privilege necessarily to have our voice heard. It's part of being a community. And the second thing I wanted to add to my previous message was, I do directly request you, all directors, thank you, and council, to please defer and delay this bylaw. There has not been one positive note this evening. We're going on 3 hours. There has not been one positive note. So please delay and defer this bylaw. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Megan. We'll move you into the gallery. And the next up on my list, I have Clark Hamilton. And I'm not sure if I've got Clark Hamilton or if I've got Doug Mulligan. So I hope you introduce yourself with your first and your last name, please.
It's Doug Mulligan again.
Hi, Doug.
Hi. Hey, so yeah, I think at the end, you know, again, this 3 minutes, just as was just previously said, is a very short time to go through things that were, you know, I'd like to get into specifics, but there just isn't time. So it's so hard to articulate the broader scope of this, the macro and the micro, and both seem to be failing here in this meeting. I think, and again, this just goes to supporting deferment, which is really what we've all heard constantly now for 3 hours. The only way we're going to get a proper bylaw in place that reflects this community is through proper public consultation. And I think it's clear to everybody here that that has not happened. Everybody, I'm guessing, but approximately maybe 30% of the people that are here that have participated tonight have said that they just heard about this within the last day or two. I wonder how many people there are who have not heard about this and are not getting the opportunity to have their voices heard. So clearly, please, clearly, this has not, there. I'm a general contractor. I'm sitting here with two other general contractors amongst the other ones that we met with there. We've had multiple meetings with the SCRD. I go into the SCRD regularly for variances and permits and development permits, et cetera, et cetera. There's not even a posting in the SCRD office saying, hey, big red banner. Other people have talked about having it all mailed out to everybody so everybody can clearly just even know that this is going on. And so this is where this has failed. It's clearly failed in its public consultation. It's clearly failed in representing its community properly and having our voices understood and heard. And that's why this needs to be deferred, period.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
Right.
We are going to move you back into the gallery.
Before you move Doug out, I have a question for Doug.
Sure.
Was a letter submitted by the construction industry or the group that came together?
Yeah.
Did that come in? I'm sorry, I haven't gone through the
Yeah, I sent one today. I brought one in today because I missed the 12 o'clock
perfect.
deadline, but I always said that it would be brought in. And again, that more was specific to the setback thing, which we, as a group, just we picked that as low-hanging fruit as one example where we wanted to have real clear, concise understanding as to why the SCRD was moving from 7.5 meters to 15 meters. Like why that number? Just like other people have said, why 6 people? Why not 8? And at that meeting, it was for the main reason was sea level rise. You were there. The main reason was and I'll ask you.
Okay,
do you think that was a good meet? I know what you're saying. This isn't a forum for that, but
that's right.
But anyways, nonetheless, I think my point is yes, we put a letter in. Clark Hamilton also put a letter in. But again, and one other thing I'd like to add to this. Sorry. Again, other people have mentioned this has gone on through the summer. Everybody's really busy, and we're having this meeting the night before we put our kids back in school. For most people, it's really not good timing. It's not well thought out. It's not well planned. I think I've said enough. But thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, Doug.
All right, thank you, Doug. Up next, we have Catherine Nichols, and then we have Donna after that. Catherine, first and last name, please.
Catherine Nichols, Area E. And as Clark was saying, 2 minutes or 3 minutes is just not enough to say all the things that I wanted to say. This is rushed. It feels rushed. I'm sure that's just from maybe lack of attendance to the matter, but it feels that it's going through quicker than it needs to go through. 2 things that really concern me is that this bylaw that is about structures and businesses and how they look and how they operate, you're affecting the livelihoods of thousands of small businesses up and down the coast with the stroke of one pen. And that seems that it deserves a little more consultation and a lot more time and consideration. The second thing that concerns me personally is that I participate in the art crawl, as do hundreds of other artists. And you are telling me, asking me, or making me choose between participating in what will become an illegal event versus participating in something that I think and believe in strongly in the community, and I think is a huge, huge supporter of the economy of the Sunshine Coast. Both the positive feedback that I get from visitors who come to see me. My studio's only open that one weekend of the year. This affects me in such a tiny way compared to many, many others who have spoken. But I have a choice now whether to participate in what has become an illegal activity or not. And that's a hard place to be in. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. We'll move you into the gallery. Up next, we have Donna. After Donna, we have Peter.
Thank you. Donna Sugar, Roberts Creek. I have a logistical question that I'm hoping somebody, either staff or the directors, can answer. And that is, in a public hearing, you can make changes. And if the use or the density of property is proposed to be changed, another public hearing has to be held. Clearly, you've heard tonight that people are unhappy with some of the uses in the bylaw, and therefore, if you're really paying attention and listening to what people are saying, you will want to make those changes. Logistically, to have a second public hearing, you've got to take this, you've got to write a report, you've got to take it to committee, then you have to take it to the board, then you have to schedule a public hearing, you have to notify the newspaper 2 weeks running and with certain time constraints. Logistically, is that possible to do and have the required public consultation before the public hearing so that people know what is in the bylaw before the new board takes office on November 10th?
Looking back at the timeline, I mean, I would go to staff because I mean they know how this would fit in with work or with the Jonathan, do you want to take that?
Please. Thanks for the question. In terms of logistics, it would be challenging to have another public hearing and go through all of the motions through to adoption in the timelines we have left in the remaining term for the current board. That being said, some of the stuff that we've heard tonight is pertaining to uses and density, which would trigger another public hearing. There are some other things that are actually more conditions of use, such as those things around home-based business specifically would be an example of that, and even some of the residential agriculture needs. So there is some decisions that staff will take away and evaluate and provide options to the board in a report following this public hearing to help dissect what the options might be moving forward.
My time was ticking while he was talking, so I'm going to continue on.
That's fine, Donna. Yep.
Thank you. I think you don't have any other option but to defer this and put it on hold and do the proper thing after the new board is elected. I really, really feel that that is the really only course of action that you have, given everything that's been said tonight. And I'm sure that you have received numerous letters as well. I don't know what you've received or how many, but I'm sure you've received a lot. I would like to also know how many people have been on this call. I know that not everybody who is on the call has spoken, but it would be good to know how many people are participating. And I really think that you should put this in abeyance until after November 10th. Can you tell us how many people?
I know it'll be in the final report, Donna, but I can tell you total, I know we got over 108 at one point, or around 108. So I'm not sure if that was ebb and flow, but I did see a high of 108.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I will say, Donna, that also included staff and directors too. So that 108 number. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Donna. Moving you back into the gallery. And up next, we have Peter. After Peter, we have Tammy.
Yes, hi. Good evening again. Peter Sugden from Roberts Creek. I have been working on a building project in Gibson's residential building project. So I've been in contact with building and planning staff periodically over the past year and a quarter. And I have asked regarding the 998 or the increase up to 998 square feet for auxiliary dwellings. And it was really mentioned to me sort of in passing that, oh, these changes could be coming up. And I anticipate that change is actually a fairly welcome change to many of the construction firms and homeowners here in the Sunshine Coast. So I congratulate that this is actually moving ahead. So that is one thing I think has been anticipated. I would actually suggest that particular item could be shaled off, the 998 square feet and possibly a 592 square foot secondary suite, that those could be shaled off and put in as amendments to the existing bylaw 310. But in any case, that's sort of an aside. Going back to the home-based business, my wife is an artist. She has participated in the crawl at least once here on the coast. In addition, we have attended numerous times the Vancouver Art Crawl. And in that particular setting, where houses and buildings are much more closely put together, and neighbors are more often being impacted and affected, there is no such restriction as 6 persons attending and by appointment. So for me, that is an absolutely ludicrous suggestion to be putting this in Sunshine Coast. So specifically for Jonathan and Yuli, I would then ask the question, is there somebody who in any particular kind of business activity that has been targeted, that has been problematic here on the Sunshine Coast, that has triggered this sudden jump and rush to a 6-person by appointment only home-based business? And that's my question. And I hope, for goodness sake, that it's not the art crawl, because the art crawl on the Sunshine Coast is a wonderful piece of culture, and I would not like to see it go. There are so many people who not only depend on it, but it is a characteristic of culture to be able to sponsor something like this. It is even more wonderful, the types of work that you get to see on the coast compared to the Vancouver Art Crawl. So back to the question for Jonathan and or Yuli, is there some business or individuals who are getting targeted in order to create this draconian kind of restriction?
Peter or Yuli, or pardon me, Jonathan or Yuli, would you like to answer that? I would say that there sounds like I'm not really liking the way that was phrased, Peter, because that's implying that staff is targeting business, and that's not the case. Peter or Jonathan or Yuli, would you like to, is there anything other than what you've already said? It's by research. This bylaw is still in its draft form. This is why we're doing the public hearing process. I'm Jonathan or Yuli, I'd be happy if either one of you wanted to comment on Peter's question.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment. As we've mentioned previously, this has been developed based on research, looking at best practices from other local governments, including regional districts and municipalities. Part of that is certainly looking at and working with our legal counsel to ensure that what we put in a bylaw actually has an enforceability to it. But that's as far as that's gone in terms of the enforcement aspect of it, is actually ensuring that what is in there is something that actually can be enforced when and if there is a need for that. But short of that, it's been based on best practice research from many other regional districts and municipalities throughout the province. Hope that helps. Thank you.
All right, Peter, we're going to move you back into the gallery. We're going to go next to Tammy and then to Brenda. Tammy, go ahead, please. First and last name, please.
Darcy Clark.
Hi, Darcy.
Yeah, not a problem. I don't know what I am to you guys, but I believe I'm a constituent.
Yes.
But I can't help say loud enough and clear enough that I want you to delay and defer this bylaw until more people can come into it, because it has been overwhelming. I have not heard one yay. It's been, you say 108 people. Of course, they haven't all spoken, but in my mind, it's been 108. Well, sorry, I guess there's you and the workers. But anyway, it's been unanimous that this has to be delayed. And I encourage this as hard as I can encourage it. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is we're worried about controlling small businesses, or I've heard this word control used. I've heard I would like to control my water tap. And maybe you guys could spend some time on figuring that solution out that has been going on for years and years. We live in a rainforest, and yet
So Darcy, excuse me, I'm going to interrupt here. We're not talking about water here. We're talking about the zoning bylaw. There are a lot of water projects that are in process. They're on the website. You can go there and see what we're working on. We are working on lots of them. So please stay on the bylaw.
Thanks, Darnell. That's thank you for that. It's just, you know, we should be encouraging small business, not choking it off. And these bylaws don't seem to encourage our lifestyle here on the coast and what I've known for 31 years of living here. I moved into the SCRD to continue my home business. And now I moved here because of that. And now all of a sudden there's going to be regulations on what I can't do. Now I only found out today this, so I can't speak on what it says, but about me personally, you know, I don't have people coming to my home to buy stuff. I leave my home to go to work, but I just can't emphasize enough that it's very frustrating that there wasn't enough information let out so the public could speak on this. So I just want to again encourage you as a member of this community to delay and defer this bylaw, please. And I thank you for my time, and I thank you for your time this late in the evening. Thank you very much.
Darcy. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move Darcy into the gallery. I had said Brenda, but Brenda, you've already spoken twice, so I'm going to go to somebody else who hasn't spoken for the second time. So that'll be Allison Taylor and then Landon Dix, and then we'll see if there's anybody else who wishes to speak a second time before we go to the third time. So Allison, you're up next. First and last name, and go ahead, please.
Hi, it's Allison Taylor from Half Moon Bay. Man, I do not want your job, people. Can't believe we're still going. There were a couple of things that came up during the meeting that I just wanted to mention. Stuart E. had made a comment about some broken links to information, so I did encounter that too. Today, I remembered that I'd seen your meeting tonight on Facebook, and when I went to the Facebook post and clicked through to the Let's Talk page and clicked through to the second reading or public hearing, that link didn't work. So there may have been people who were trying to get here tonight that, like me, you know, encountered that link and couldn't get through. I then figured out that, well, I'll try going to your homepage, and I found a different link. So that's how I ended up being here. And at one point I was seeing a broken link also on the website to information about the bylaw. So I know some of that's been going on. Mr. Butler had made a comment earlier on about the size of the workspace. You know, let's not limit it to a percentage of the home size. And I'd agree with them on that. I think we want to encourage people to be able to have small homes. And there's some people who might be willing to live in a tiny home, but they need a workshop that's bigger than their home. So I'd love to see that be factored in. I think it makes good sense that the workspace be limited in percentage to the overall size of the property. But I don't think it makes a lot of sense to have it be relative to the size of the home. I think someone should have to live on their residential property in order to have a home-based business. They shouldn't just be able to turn it into something that's a business property, but I don't think their home should be have to be big. One of the things that I think it was Yuli had mentioned, that importance of wanting to make sure that, you know, these are residential areas and these are commercial, and that certain things shouldn't happen in residential areas because they should be commercial. I know I've looked in the past to the cost of getting commercial space. And personally, for me as a home-based business owner, I couldn't make a living if I had to rent commercial space. It's just so much more expensive than using a room out of my home. And I think that's going to be true probably for thousands of people on the coast. Some businesses that are literally the things that keep us alive on the coast won't be viable if we have to rent commercial space. So I hope that'll be factored in to this bylaw as well. And the one about the 6 visits a day, I had 2 things I wanted to say about that. One of them is just, if we need to have a limit, could that be monthly instead of daily? so that it allows you to have like a 1 day a week where you have 20 people show up to your house for, you know, an art showing, and then you don't do anything the rest of the month. So maybe have that not be daily. And then the other one, which I think is what a previous person was getting at, have there been complaints about certain home-based businesses in the coast? And I don't mean to name names, but just have you received complaints that, oh, there's too many people coming to this home or this business by the neighbors that's triggering this? Or are you just kind of working in this vague, well, we're looking for best practices. There haven't been complaints, but we'd like to create a bylaw. So that would be my question there.
Okay. Jonathan?
Sure. No, thanks for the question again. You know, it is based greatly on research on best practices, but also at the same time ensuring, as I mentioned, enforceability and ensuring that we're able to support our bylaw enforcement team with the tools that they need to do their job. So there is a degree of both there, but it starts with the research, looking around at what others are doing, and then trying to, you know, make a determination on what would be an appropriate level to sort of help place some limitations on a home-based business such that it ensures the residential character of the neighborhood is upheld. Again, you know, we've heard many comments here tonight, and we'll certainly be sorting through those and reporting back to the board on them in our third reading report. But that is how we've got there. It's a combination of ensuring that we have a tool that is enforceable, but also one that is based on best practice.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that there have been complaints to date. I understand the enforceable thing, but it didn't quite answer my question, which is, are there complaints coming into the SCRD about home-based businesses with too much traffic that are triggering it? Or are you trying to be proactive by creating it, even though you haven't had those complaints?
Well, I can't get into the specifics of bylaw enforcement complaints.
Of course.
I think those are investigations that have to be kept private for a whole number of reasons. But we do work closely with the bylaws team to help, you know, ensure that we're giving them tools that will be effective for them. I'm not sure if that helps answer the question or not.
Nope.
Yuli had his hand up too, Jonathan. So
I just want to quickly mention, yes, we do receive complaints regarding home-based businesses. So without mentioning the specifics, right. It's only part of our research and consideration, and we're trying to reach a balance. So yes, we do realize we may not get everything right. So that's why we are here to hear what you have to say tonight, and certainly their opportunity to make further adjustments.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Allison. We'll move you into the gallery and we'll bring in Landon. Landon is the last one we have for the second round. So Landon, first and last name, and you've got 3 minutes.
Thanks, Lori. Yeah, Landon Dix. Previous speaker brought up a really good point about size of the home-based business being based on a home. I don't think that makes any sense at all. You can have a 500 square foot home on 2 acres and you're left with nothing to have a home office. That definitely needs to be based on property size. As well, Doug Mulligan, Clark Hamilton, the whole construction community, you know, absolutely, we don't need to be making changes to our setbacks, especially when considering setbacks from the ocean front. If that has any weight on sea level rise, that has to do with a geotechnical evaluation and elevation. First and foremost, you can be perched up on a bluff, and what does 17 meters have to do with anything? The other thing is, within this, you're forcing out people that can essentially run a business in a rural neighborhood. You're forcing them to go to commercial real estate. Lori, you've been quoted saying that you can't live on the coast anymore because it's too expensive. So now people that can barely afford to live at home and run a business at home have to now afford an external office because we're mandating what type of business they can run at home. I don't think it makes sense for constituents. I don't think it makes sense for any rural community to have that enforcement and choose who can do what on their own property in that way. So there's definitely some things that have been brought up tonight and very specific points that are not seen in favor by anybody in the meeting that the directors and council members need to go back and reflect before considering voting yes on the proposed bylaws here. I think the only thing that we've heard maybe people do agree with is increasing the size of auxiliary dwellings. But that's it. Just please listen to all the points that have been spoken to tonight. They are being brought up very specifically. Please don't hurt the art crawl, the six visitors at an appointed time. It's really absurd. So please just listen to everybody's comments tonight and consider it in a revised draft on what needs to be put forward, and let's try and control our communities a little bit less. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Landon. Good to hear from you. We're going to put you back into the gallery. And so I am now going to call a third and final time for further submissions. I have two right now on the speakers list. I have Brenda and then Donna. So Brenda, you're up first. First and last name and 3 minutes.
Thanks for letting me speak one more time. Brenda Sopel, Roberts Creek. I just wanted to say that not only is it a unique community overall, the Sunshine Coast, but we have many small communities within the community. I've had the same neighbors probably for 25 years, and most of them, there's been very little movement. So everybody kind of polices themselves about all sorts of happenings in the area. So I think that's something that gets missed sometimes. And I just actually had come up with a couple of ideas because it's bothersome to me that, again, I just heard about this yesterday as well. And it was bothersome to me that I missed this because I try to stay engaged because I know that's my responsibility. But Doug Mulligan actually came up with a really good point about he said banners, and I thought, well, for the next public hearing on this bylaw, when you good folks defer it because it's the right thing to do, I would suggest you put up some nice banners in some of the areas where it gets a lot of traffic and scrutiny, and also those signboards. You have put up the water restriction signboards. I think it'd be great to put up some issues regarding these bylaws because these are critical legislation that's changing everything. And actually, Darnelda, to your point, there are many unintended consequences with this bylaw, and water is a very important consideration. If we're going to be sustainable and watering our gardens, water is an issue. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Over into the gallery for Brenda, and then we've got Donna. Donna, first and last name, please.
Donna Sugar, Roberts Creek. My goodness, do I get the last word? I can't let the oceanside setback issue pass by without making a comment. It's one of the things in the bylaw that I support. And it's not as much about sea level rise as about the health of the waterfront ecology. I'm sure that some people in Roberts Creek will remember that we brought in a 15-meter setback some time ago. It was very controversial, and I just about got run out of town on a pole. But it went through, and it was because we did a lot of research. And if anybody is interested, look up Green Shores, and you'll find out a lot of information about the necessity to stay back from the ocean and allow that very sensitive ecosystem that we rely on to flourish. So that's something that I really do support in this bylaw. Thank you. The other thing that I did want to say just on this whole issue of separation of commercial and residential, I think the ability to have some interplay between those things is really crucial, and to have some variety and mixed use within our residential neighborhoods keeps it vital, keeps it strong. And having this kind of hard line between residential and commercial is, I don't think it makes for vibrant communities. And we all talk about the walkability and to be able to walk down the street and have something interesting going on is, to lose that would be a real shame. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, Donna was the end of our speakers list, and I have no other hands up. So with no further representations, comments, or written submissions, I will now declare the hearing closed for zoning bylaw 722. I'd like to thank everyone for your attendance and participation at this public hearing. I know it's been a long one. We appreciate everyone who has been here this evening. Thank you to our planning staff, Jonathan and Yuli. Thank you so much. Thank you to my alternate chair, Darnelda. Thank you to directors Hiltz, McMahon, and Lee for being here. Thank you to Chris and Nick from our planning department, Genevieve, our recorder. And of course, we cannot, hands up always to our IT department. Thank you, Bryce, so much for being here. And with that, have a good night, everyone, and we will see you soon. Good night.